She was supposed to die alone in those woods. That's what they all believed. Lyra Vance, the girl with cursed silver fire in her veins, had been running for 6 years. Hunted, hated, blamed for a massacre she couldn't even remember causing. The pack that raised her wanted her dead. The world wanted her erased. But when she made one impossible choice in the heart of that blood-soaked forest, everything changed. She didn't just survive. She became something they would all learn to fear. Stay until the end to see how the hunted became the hunter. Drop a like and tell us what city you're watching from. The rain tasted like iron and ash. Lyra Vance stumbled through the tangled roots of the thornwood forest, her breath coming in ragged gasps that burned her lungs. Behind her, the howls rose again, closer now, always closer. She recognized every voice. Kael's low, relentless growl, Mira's sharp, eager bark, even old Garen's rumbling snarl, the one that used to comfort her when she was small. Now they wanted her throat. Her bare feet slipped on moss-slick stone as she crashed through a thicket of blackthorn. Branches tore at her arms, her face, her already shredded cloak. Blood mixed with rainwater trickling down her skin in thin red streams. She didn't slow down. Couldn't. 6 years of running had taught her that stopping meant dying. "There!" someone shouted behind her. "She's bleeding. Follow the scent." Lyra's heart hammered against her ribs. Her fingers tingled with that horrible, familiar heat. No, not now. Not again. She veered left, deeper into the forest where the trees grew so thick that even moonlight couldn't reach the ground. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled across the sky like the growl of something massive and angry. The storm was getting worse. Good. Maybe it would wash away her trail. Her foot caught on an exposed root and she went down hard, palms slamming into mud. Pain shot up her wrists. She bit down on a scream, tasting dirt and copper. "Get up," she whispered to herself. "Get up, get up, get—" A wolf burst through the undergrowth 20 feet behind her. Lyra scrambled backward, her spine hitting the trunk of an ancient oak. The wolf was massive, easily twice her size, with fur the color of storm clouds and eyes that glowed amber in the darkness. Kael, the tracker, the one who never lost a trail. He stalked toward her, lips pulled back from teeth that could tear her apart in seconds. "Kael, please!" Her voice cracked. "I didn't mean to shit." "Shut your mouth, abomination." His voice was all wolf now, barely human. "You think words will save you? You think begging will bring them back?" "I don't even know what happened." The words burst out of her, desperate and raw. "I was 15. I didn't understand." "You killed 12 of our pack." Kael's growl deepened. "Burned them alive with that cursed flame. You left nothing but ash and screaming." Lyra's hands began to shake. The heat was building in her palms, climbing up her forearms like liquid fire beneath her skin. She could feel it, the silver light beginning to glow through her fingertips. "No," she breathed. "No, not now." "There it is." Kael's eyes locked onto her hands. "The poison that made you a monster. Go ahead, freak. Show us all what you really are." Other wolves emerged from the shadows. Mira, sleek and vicious, her teeth bared in a smile that promised pain. Garen, massive and scarred, his expression unreadable. 3 others she didn't recognize. Younger wolves, probably born after she ran. They all circled her like she was already dead. "Kael, listen to me." Lyra pressed her palms flat against the tree trunk, trying to smother the light. "If I lose control again, you'll all—" "We're ready for you this time." Mira circled closer, claws scraping against stone. "We brought silver chains, silver blades. You won't burn your way out of this." Lyra's throat tightened. Silver. The one thing that could cut through her defenses, that made her power turn inward and eat her alive from the inside out. She was going to die here. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, something strange happened. A calm settled over her shoulders like a cloak. 6 years. She'd been running for 6 years, sleeping in caves and hollow trees, eating scraps, jumping at every shadow, living like a ghost. Maybe it was time to stop. Fine. She pushed off from the tree and stood, shoulders squared despite the trembling in her legs. "You want to kill me? Do it, but I'm not running anymore." Kael's ears flattened. "You think we need your permission?" "I think you're afraid." Lyra met his eyes and didn't look away. You brought 6 wolves to kill 1 girl. You armed yourselves with silver. You waited until I was exhausted and bleeding. That's not strength, KL. That's fear. Mira snarled. Watch your tongue. Or what? You'll kill me faster? Lyra laughed, and it sounded broken even to her own ears. I was Pack once. You all taught me that fear makes you weak. So tell me, who's weak now? For a moment, nobody moved. Then Kael lunged. Lyra didn't try to run. She stood there, feet planted, hands at her sides. The wolf's jaws opened wide, aiming for her throat. She could see every tooth, smell the raw meat on his breath. Time seemed to slow, and then a flash of white fur. Something slammed into Kael from the side, sending both wolves tumbling across the forest floor in a snarl of fangs and fury. Lyra stumbled backward, her mind struggling to process what she was seeing. Another wolf, smaller than Kael but faster, moving with a grace that made the fight look like a dance. White fur streaked with red. Red? No, blood. The white wolf was already injured, a massive gash across its shoulder leaking crimson onto the ground. "Kill her!" Mira shouted. "Forget the stranger. Kill the girl." But the pack's attention was split now. 2 wolves moved toward Lyra. 3 rushed the white wolf. Chaos erupted in the clearing. Lyra's hands ignited. Silver fire burst from her palms without warning, raw and uncontrolled. She screamed as it tore through her, that familiar agony of power she didn't understand and couldn't stop. The flames shot outward in a wild arc, forcing the wolves to scatter. "No!" She fell to her knees, trying to pull the fire back in. "Stop! Stop! Stop!" The white wolf yelped. Lyra's head snapped up. The stranger had taken a hit meant for her. One of the younger wolves had caught it across the ribs with a silver-tipped blade. The white wolf staggered, blood pouring from the wound. Their eyes met. Gold. The stranger's eyes were pure gold, and in them Lyra saw something she hadn't seen in 6 years. Not fear, not hatred, recognition. The white wolf's legs buckled. "No!" Lyra didn't think. She just moved. Her hands were still burning with silver fire as she threw herself between the fallen wolf and Kael's next strike. The flame erupted outward in a protective wall, forcing the pack back. Heat seared the air. The smell of singed fur filled the clearing. "You're protecting it?" Kael's voice was disbelief and rage mixed together. "Are you insane?" "Maybe." Lyra's voice shook, but she didn't move. The white wolf lay behind her, breathing in shallow gasps. "But I'm done running, and I'm done letting innocent things die." "Innocent?" Mira laughed, sharp and cruel. "That's a Thornguard wolf, you idiot! Do you know what they do to rogues like us?" Lyra didn't know. Didn't care. All she knew was that this creature, this stranger, had taken a blade for her, had fought when it could have run, had looked at her without hate. That was enough. "Back off," she said, and her voice didn't shake this time. "Or I burn you all." "You'll burn yourself too," Garen said quietly. He hadn't moved from his spot at the edge of the clearing, just watching with those old, tired eyes. "That's what your power does, girl. It destroys everything, including you." "Then so be it." The silver fire flared brighter, hotter. Lyra's skin felt like it was splitting apart, her vision blurred with pain and tears. But she held the flames steady, kept them burning between her pack, her former pack, and the dying wolf behind her. Kael took a step back, then another. "This isn't over," he said. "You can't protect it forever. Watch me." For a long moment, the pack stared at her. Then, one by one, they melted back into the shadows. Kael was the last to leave, his amber eyes promising vengeance. "You just signed your death warrant, Lyra Vance." Then he was gone. The moment the last wolf disappeared, Lyra's legs gave out. The fire vanished as she collapsed beside the white wolf, gasping for air. Her hands were blistered and raw. Her whole body screamed in protest. But she'd done it. She'd stopped running. The white wolf whimpered softly. Up close, Lyra could see just how badly it was injured. The shoulder wound was deep, probably from silver given how slowly it was healing. The newer gash across its ribs was worse. She could see bone. "Hey," Lyra whispered, reaching out with a trembling hand. "Hey, it's okay. I've got you." The wolf's golden eyes flickered open, focusing on her face. I don't know what I'm doing, Lyra admitted. Her medical knowledge began and ended with basic herb poultices, and even those required ingredients she didn't have. But I'm not leaving you. You saved me, so I'm going to save you. Deal? The wolf's tail twitched. Maybe it was a trick of the light, but Lyra could have sworn she saw understanding in those eyes. She tore strips from her already ruined cloak and pressed them against the worst of the wounds. The wolf flinched but didn't pull away. Blood soaked through the fabric immediately. Come on, Lyra muttered. Don't you dare die on me now. Thunder cracked overhead. The rain intensified, turning from drizzle to downpour in seconds. Lyra hunched over the wolf, trying to shield it from the worst of the storm. Her hands still tingled with residual heat. She stared at them, at the faint silver glow that hadn't quite faded. This power, this curse, had taken everything from her. Her family, her home, her chance at a normal life. But tonight, for the first time, she'd used it to protect instead of destroy. Maybe that meant something. Maybe... The wolf's breathing changed. Lyra looked down in alarm. No, 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 stay with me. But something was happening. The white fur began to shimmer like moonlight on water. The wolf's body convulsed, once, twice. Lyra scrambled backward, unsure whether to run or help or... The transformation took less than 30 seconds. Where the wolf had been, a man now lay bleeding in the mud. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. He was tall, even collapsed on the ground. She could tell he'd tower over her. Broad shoulders, muscular arms, dark hair plastered to his skull by rain. His face was all hard angles and sharp lines, handsome in a brutal sort of way. But what caught her attention were the scars. They covered his chest, his arms, his back, a roadmap of violence etched into skin. And the wounds, the silver-inflicted injuries that had nearly killed him in wolf form, looked even worse on human flesh. "Oh, gods," Lyra breathed. You're not..." His eyes opened, still gold. Even in human form, his eyes were that impossible, otherworldly gold. "Foolish," he rasped. His voice was deep, roughened by pain. "Foolish girl. You should have let me die." "Shut up." Lyra pressed her makeshift bandages against his ribs, trying to ignore the fact that she was touching a complete stranger's bare skin. "I didn't ask for your opinion. You don't understand who I am. I don't care who you are." A sound escaped him. It might have been a laugh if he'd had the strength for it. "You will." His eyes rolled back and he went limp. "Hey," Lyra shook his shoulder. "Hey, wake up. You can't just say cryptic things and pass out. That's not fair." But he was unconscious, bleeding out in the mud while the storm raged overhead. Lyra looked around wildly. They were in the middle of nowhere. She had no shelter, no supplies, no way to get help. And she was pretty sure Kyle and his pack would circle back once they regrouped. She needed to move. But how was she supposed to move a man who probably weighed twice what she did? Her hands began to glow again. "No," she told them firmly. "Absolutely not. We are not burning anyone right now." The glow intensified. "I said no!" The silver fire burst outward, but not in the destructive wave she expected. Instead, it wrapped around her arms like living light, cool instead of burning. She gasped as strength flooded into her muscles. Not her strength, but something borrowed from the flame itself. Slowly, carefully, she slid her arms under the stranger's shoulders and lifted. He came up easily, too easily. The silver light made her strong enough to carry him like he weighed nothing. "Okay," Lyra muttered, adjusting her grip. "Okay, this is new. This is very new, and probably very bad. But we're going with it." She started walking. The forest was a maze of darkness and rain. Lyra moved on instinct, following game trails and half-remembered paths from her childhood. The silver light around her arms pulsed in time with her heartbeat, steady and strange. After what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes, she found it. A shallow cave carved into the side of a rocky outcropping. Not perfect, but defensible. And most importantly, dry. She laid the stranger down as gently as she could. The silver light faded from her arms the moment she let him go, leaving her gasping and weak. Her knees hit the cave floor hard. "Worth it," she panted. "Totally worth it." The stranger didn't respond. His breathing was shallow but steady, still alive. Lyra crawled to the cave entrance and peered out into the storm. No sign of pursuit. Yet. She should run. That was the smart play. Leave this mysterious man here and disappear into the wilderness like she'd done 100 times before. He'd probably die, but that wasn't her problem. Except, she looked back at him, at the scars covering his skin, at the way his jaw clenched even in unconsciousness, like he was fighting battles in his sleep. He'd saved her, and she'd made him a promise. "Deal's a deal," Lyra whispered. She spent the next hour doing what she could with limited supplies. She found a stream nearby and used her torn cloak to bring back water. She washed his wounds as best she could, hissing in sympathy when she saw how deep the silver cuts went. Silver poisoning was slow and vicious. It would eat away at him from the inside unless treated properly. Unfortunately, she had no idea how to treat it properly. "Don't die," she told his unconscious form. "I didn't carry you all this way just to watch you die. That would be really annoying." She built a small fire near the cave entrance. Not for warmth, her body still radiated the strange heat of her power, but for light, and maybe, subconsciously, for protection. Wolves feared fire. Most wolves, anyway. As the flames crackled and popped, Lyra finally let herself feel the exhaustion. Her whole body ached. Her hands were blistered and raw. Her feet were cut and bleeding, and her mind couldn't stop replaying the moment she'd chosen to stand instead of run. It had felt like dying. It had felt like living. "What is wrong with me?" she asked the darkness. The stranger stirred. Lyra was at his side in an instant. "Hey, can you hear me?" Those gold eyes cracked open, unfocused and glassy with fever. "You're still here. Where else would I be?" "Safe." He tried to sit up and immediately collapsed back with a groan. "Far from me." "Yeah, well, I'm not great at making smart decisions." Lyra pressed a cool cloth to his forehead. "How do you feel?" "Like I was stabbed with silver." "That's because you were stabbed with silver." Another almost laugh. "Perceptive." They sat in silence for a moment. The rain had slowed to a steady patter against stone. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called out. "What's your name?" Lyra asked. He studied her face for a long moment. "You really don't know who I am." "Should I?" "Most people would." "I'm not most people." That earned her a real smile. Small, pained, but genuine. "No, you're not." He closed his eyes and Lyra thought he'd fallen asleep again. But then, "Darius," he said quietly. "My name is Darius Thorn." The name meant nothing to her. Should it have? "Lyra," she offered. "Lyra Vance." The girl with silver fire. Her stomach dropped. "How did you—" "I could feel it. When you used your power." His eyes opened again, pinning her with that impossible golden stare. "That's not ordinary flame, Lyra Vance. That's something ancient. Something that was supposed to be extinct." "I don't—" She shook her head. "I don't understand what it is. I just know it destroys everything I touch." "No." Darius's hand moved, slow, painful, until it rested over hers. His skin was burning with fever, but his grip was surprisingly gentle. Tonight it protected. Tonight it saved. Tonight was different. Why? The question hung in the air between them. Why had tonight been different? Why had she stood her ground instead of running? Why had she protected a stranger? Why had her power, for the first time in 6 years, done exactly what she needed instead of spiraling out of control? "I don't know," Lyra admitted. "I'm tired of running, tired of being afraid, tired of—" Her voice cracked. "I'm just tired." Darius's thumb brushed against her knuckles. The gesture was so unexpected, so gentle, that Lyra almost pulled away. "You should rest," he said. "I'll keep watch." "You can barely keep your eyes open. I'm stronger than I look." "You look half dead." "Then I'm only a quarter dead." His eyes started to drift shut again. "That's practically healthy." He was asleep before he finished the sentence. Lyra sat there, his hand still covering hers, and tried to make sense of everything that had happened. In one night, she'd defied her former pack, saved a stranger, discovered her power could be controlled, and learned the stranger's name. Darius Thorn. Why did that name feel important? She was too exhausted to figure it out. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her hollow and shaking. She needed to sleep. Just for a few hours. Then she'd figure out what to do next. She pulled her hand free gently and moved to the opposite side of the cave, far enough away to be proper, close enough to hear if Darius's breathing changed. The fire burned low. Rain whispered against stone. And for the first time in 6 years, Lyra fell asleep without nightmares. She woke to the sound of wings, not bird wings, something bigger, something that made the air itself vibrate. Lyra's eyes snapped open. Dawn light filtered through the cave entrance, pale and gray. The fire had died to embers. And Darius was standing, actually standing, despite the fact that he should have been unconscious or dead. He stood at the cave entrance, his back to her, staring out at something she couldn't see. "Darius?" Lyra scrambled to her feet. "What?" "They're here," he said quietly. "Who's here? Kyle? The pack?" "No." He turned to face her, and there was something different in his expression, something that made her heart sink. "My people. The Thorn Guard." The name clicked into place. The Thorn Guard. Elite warriors who served the Alpha King, ruthless, merciless, feared across every territory. "You're one of them," Lyra breathed. "That's why Mira recognized you." "Not one of them." Darius's jaw tightened. "I lead them." The world tilted. "You're..." Lyra's voice came out strangled. "You're the Alpha King." Darius Thorn. Not just some injured wolf, not just some stranger she'd saved on impulse. The most powerful shifter in the continent, and she'd just spent the night in a cave with him. "This is bad," Lyra said. "This is very, very bad." "For you, probably." The sound of wings grew louder. Shadows passed over the cave entrance, massive shapes that blocked out the rising sun. "They'll want to know why their king was injured," Darius continued. His voice was calm. Too calm. "They'll want someone to blame." Lyra's hands began to heat. "You can't seriously think I don't," he cut her off. "But they will. They'll see a rogue wolf with dangerous power standing over their injured king, and they'll draw their own conclusions." "Then tell them the truth." "I could." Darius tilted his head, studying her with those unsettling gold eyes. "Or you could come with me." "What?" "To my territory. Under my protection." Lyra laughed. It sounded hysterical even to her own ears. "You're insane. I spent 6 years running from wolves who wanted me dead. Why would I willingly walk into the den of the most powerful pack in existence?" "Because staying here means dying." Darius gestured to the forest beyond the cave. "Your old pack wants you dead. Now, they know you can control your power when motivated. That makes you more dangerous, not less. They'll hunt you until there's nothing left." "And you won't?" "I'm not interested in hunting you, Lyra Vance." "Then what are you interested in?" The question came out sharper than she intended, but something in Darius's expression, something calculating and cold, made her skin prickle with warning. Before he could answer, a voice boomed from outside the cave. "My king, we've found you!" 3 wolves landed just beyond the entrance. No, not wolves. They shifted midair, transforming from massive winged beasts into armored warriors before they hit the ground. All 3 wore the silver crest of the Thorn Guard on their chests. The tallest one, a woman with a scarred face and steel-gray hair, took one look at Darius and paled. "You're injured. Who did this?" "Silver Blades," Darius said. "A pack of rogues." "Where are they?" The woman's hand went to her sword. "I'll tear them apart." "Already gone." Darius stepped fully into the light, and Lyra saw the wounds on his chest had already begun to heal, faster than should have been possible. "And we have more important matters." The woman's gaze slid past him and landed on Lyra. Instantly, all 3 warriors drew their weapons. "Rogue," the woman hissed. "Step away from the king." "Wait." Lyra raised her hands. "I'm not..." "She's with me," Darius said. The temperature in the cave seemed to drop 10 degrees. All 3 warriors stared at their king like he'd just sprouted a second head. "My king," the woman said carefully, "this girl is under my protection." Darius's voice carried absolute authority. "Anyone who touches her answers to me personally. Understood?" The warriors exchanged uncertain glances, but they lowered their weapons. "Understood," the woman said, though her eyes promised violence. Darius looked back at Lyra, extended his hand. Last chance, he said quietly. Come with me or take your chances alone. Lyra stared at his hand, at the scars on his skin, at the gold eyes that revealed nothing. This was a mistake. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she'd stopped running last night, and maybe, just maybe, this was the next step. She took his hand. The moment their palms touched, something electric passed between them. Not her power, not his, something else entirely. Darius's fingers closed around hers. Welcome to the Thornwood Court, he said, and Lyra knew, with absolute certainty, that her life would never be simple again. The flight to Thornwood Court took 3 hours on the back of a winged beast Lyra had only seen in nightmares. She clung to the creature's spine, her fingers buried in coarse black fur, trying not to look down at the forest rushing past thousands of feet below. The wind screamed in her ears, her stomach lurched with every banking turn. And Darius sat ahead of her like he was lounging in a chair, perfectly balanced despite the fact that they were hurtling through the sky on the back of a monster. You can breathe, you know, he called over his shoulder. Passing out mid-flight would be inconvenient. Lyra's response was lost in the wind, probably for the best. It involved several creative suggestions about where he could shove his concern. The scarred woman, Commander Valeria, she'd introduced herself with all the warmth of a glacier, flew alongside them on her own mount. Her eyes never left Lyra, not with curiosity, with calculation, like she was deciding exactly how to dispose of a body. When the Thornwood Court finally came into view, Lyra forgot to be terrified. The fortress rose from the mountainside like it had grown there, all black stone and iron spires that clawed at the sky. Massive walls surrounded a sprawling complex of buildings, barracks, training grounds, what looked like an arena. And at the center, a palace that made Lyra's breath catch despite herself. It was beautiful in a brutal way. All sharp edges and dark glass, with towers that twisted upward like frozen flames. Home sweet home, Darius said dryly. The beast descended in a controlled dive that made Lyra's stomach attempt to escape through her throat. They landed in a courtyard paved with black stone, surrounded by guards in silver armor, who immediately dropped to one knee. My king, they said in unison. Darius slid off his mount like he hadn't been stabbed half to death 12 hours ago. He turned and offered Lyra his hand. She ignored it and climbed down herself. Her legs shook when they hit solid ground, but she stayed upright through sheer stubbornness. Valeria landed beside them, already barking orders. Get the healers! Prepare the king's quarters. And someone tell the council we've returned. No healers, Darius said. I'm fine. You were poisoned with silver. I said I'm fine. His tone left no room for argument. Valeria's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Then her gaze slid to Lyra. What about the rogue? Guest quarters, Darius said. East wing. Assign her a guard. A guard for protection or supervision? Both. Lyra's hands clenched into fists. I don't need a babysitter. You need to not get murdered in your sleep, Darius replied. Half my court will want you dead the moment they learn what you are. The guard stays. What I am? Lyra's voice rose. What exactly am I, Your Majesty? Because I'd love to know. The courtyard went silent. Every guard stared at her like she'd just committed blasphemy. Valeria's hand moved to her sword, but Darius just smiled, cold and sharp. That, he said, is what we're going to find out. He turned and walked toward the palace without looking back. After a moment's hesitation, Lyra followed. What choice did she have? The corridors inside were even more intimidating than the exterior. Vaulted ceilings, tapestries depicting battles Lyra didn't recognize, weapons mounted on walls like trophies. And everywhere, people stopped to stare at her. Whispers followed in her wake. Is that the rogue? I heard she attacked the king. Look at her hands. They're glowing. Lyra looked down. Sure enough, her palms had started to emit a faint silver light. She shoved them into her pockets and kept walking. Darius led her through a maze of hallways until they reached a set of ornate double doors. He pushed them open to reveal a room that was bigger than some houses Lyra had squatted in. This is yours, he said. Lyra stepped inside, trying not to gape. Four-poster bed with silk sheets, a fireplace already crackling with warmth, windows that overlooked the mountains, An adjoining bathroom with an actual bathtub. This is a guest room, she managed. One of the smaller ones. Of course it is. She turned to face him. Why are you doing this? Doing what? This. Lyra gestured around the room. The protection. The private quarters. You don't know me. For all you know, I could be exactly what your people think I am, a dangerous rogue who tried to kill you. Is that what you are? No. Then we don't have a problem. Yes, we do. Lyra crossed her arms. You want something from me. People don't give without expecting to take. Darius leaned against the doorframe, studying her with those unnerving gold eyes. Smart girl. So what is it? What do you want? Answers. He pushed off from the door and walked further into the room. Your power, that silver flame, it's not random. It's not a curse or a mutation or any of the other explanations people have probably given you. Then what is it? Legacy. The word hung in the air between them. I don't understand, Lyra said. No, but you will. Darius moved to the window, staring out at the mountains. There's someone you need to meet, an old woman who lives in the archives below the palace. She knows things that have been forgotten by everyone else. What kind of things? The kind that get people killed for knowing them. He looked back at her. Rest. Clean up. I'll have food sent to your room. Tonight we visit the archives. And if I refuse? Then you're free to leave. Darius headed for the door. But the moment you step outside these walls, you're on your own. No protection, no resources. Just you and whatever's hunting you. He paused in the doorway. Your choice, Lyra Vance. Then he was gone. Lyra stood alone in the massive room, her heart pounding. She walked to the window and looked out at the sprawling fortress below. Guards patrolled the walls, training yards full of warriors. Beyond that, miles of wilderness stretching in every direction. She could run, probably. Maybe. But run to what? Her hands began to glow again, brighter this time. She watched the silver light dance across her palms, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. Legacy. What did that even mean? A knock on the door made her jump. A servant entered carrying a tray of food that smelled better than anything Lyra had eaten in years. Behind her came a young man in guard armor, maybe 18, with nervous eyes. I'm Marcus, he said, positioning himself just outside the door. I'll be your guard. Great. Lyra eyed him. You planning to stand there all day? Yes, ma'am. Don't call me ma'am, and you can come inside. I'm not going to attack you. Marcus glanced at her glowing hands. If it's all the same to you, I'll stay here. Fair enough. Lyra ate mechanically, barely tasting the food. Her mind was racing. Legacy. Archives. Old women with dangerous knowledge. None of it made sense. After she ate, she did something she hadn't done in years. She took a bath. The hot water was absolute heaven. She scrubbed 6 years of dirt and blood and fear from her skin, watching it swirl down the drain in murky streams. Her hair. When was the last time she'd properly washed her hair? When she finally emerged, wrapped in a robe that was far too luxurious for someone like her, she found clothes laid out on the bed. Simple, but well made. Pants and a tunic in dark gray. Boots that actually fit. She dressed quickly, hyper-aware of Marcus standing guard just outside. Then she waited. Hours crawled by. Lyra paced the room like a caged animal. She examined every corner, every window, looking for exits she might need later. The sun tracked across the sky, turning the mountains gold, then orange, then purple. Finally, as twilight settled over the fortress, another knock came. Darius stood in the hallway, changed into fresh clothes. The wounds on his chest had healed to pink scars. Impossible, given how deep they'd been this morning. Ready? He asked. Do I have a choice? Always. Lyra brushed past him into the corridor. Let's get this over with. They descended through the palace, going deeper and deeper until the ornate hallways gave way to rough stone passages. The air grew cooler, damper. The torches on the walls flickered with a strange blue-white light. These archives, Lyra said. What exactly are they? History that the world forgot, Darius's voice echoed off the stone. Or chose to forget. There's a difference. They reached a door carved with symbols Lyra didn't recognize. Darius pressed his palm against it, and the door swung open silently. Beyond was a library that took Lyra's breath away. Shelves stretched up into darkness, filled with books and scrolls and objects she couldn't identify. Crystals glowed softly throughout the space, providing enough light to see, but not enough to chase away the shadows. And in the center of it all sat an old woman at a desk covered in ancient texts. She looked up when they entered. Her eyes, milky white, completely blind, seemed to see right through Lyra anyway. "So," the woman said. Her voice was like dry leaves rustling. "You brought her. Lyra Vance, meet Seer Moira." Darius gestured to the old woman. "Moira, this is the Silverwake." Moira stood, moving with surprising grace despite her age. "Yes, I can feel her from here. The old power, the sleeping bloodline." Lyra's hand started to heat. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you don't, child. They made sure you wouldn't." Moira shuffled closer, her blind eyes fixed on Lyra's face. "May I?" She reached out a gnarled hand. Lyra looked at Darius. He nodded. Against her better judgment, Lyra let the old woman touch her. The moment Moira's fingers brushed her forehead, the world exploded into silver light. Lyra saw a battlefield covered in bodies, silver flames consuming everything. A woman standing at the center of the carnage, her hands blazing with the same fire that now lived in Lyra's palms. The woman turned, and Lyra saw her face, her own face. No, not quite. Similar features, but older, fiercer. This woman wore power like armor. "The first Silverwake," Moira's voice echoed through the vision. "Your ancestor, the one who nearly destroyed the world." The scene shifted. Now Lyra saw a ceremony. The same woman kneeling before a circle of robed figures. They were binding her, not with chains, but with magic. Silver light wrapped around her wrists, her throat, her heart. "They feared her," Moira continued, "so they sealed her power, locked it away in her bloodline, made it dormant, sleeping, waiting." Another shift. A child being born. Then another. Then dozens. Hundreds. Generations passing in heartbeats. And in each one, the silver fire grew dimmer, weaker, until it was nothing more than a story people told to scare children. Until you, Moira said. The vision shattered. Lyra stumbled backward, gasping. Darius caught her before she fell. "What?" She couldn't get enough air. "What was that?" The truth. Moira returned to her desk, moving like the vision had cost her nothing. "You are not cursed, child. You are not broken. You are the first in 1,000 years to inherit the full strength of the Silverwake bloodline." "But I don't want it." The words burst out of Lyra. "I never asked for this power. It's destroyed everything I touch." "Because you were taught to fear it." Moira pulled out a massive tome, its cover marked with the same symbol from the door. "Because everyone around you feared it. But fear does not make a thing evil, Lyra Vance. It simply makes it unknown." Darius guided Lyra to a chair. She sat before her legs gave out. "The massacre," she said quietly. 6 years ago. My pack, they died because of me. Because I couldn't control it." They died because someone made sure you couldn't control it." Moira opened the tome, revealing pages covered in dense script. "Tell me, child, do you remember what happened that night?" Lyra's hands clenched into fists. "I was 15. We were celebrating the autumn hunt. Everything was normal. And then..." She stopped, tried to remember, couldn't. "I don't remember," she whispered. "I remember the celebration. I remember laughing. And then I remember waking up surrounded by ash and bodies and screaming." "Convenient," Moira said dryly. "A 15-year-old girl with untrained power just happens to slaughter her entire pack in a controlled burst? No, someone triggered it. Someone who knew what you were." "Who?" Lyra's voice cracked. "Who would do that?" Moira looked at Darius. Darius's expression was unreadable. "We have suspicions, no proof." "Tell me." "There are factions," he said carefully. "Groups who believe the old bloodlines are too dangerous to exist. They've been hunting them for centuries, quietly, carefully, making it look like accidents or curses or madness." "You're saying someone framed me?" Lyra stood, anger burning hotter than fear now. Made me think I murdered my own family? We're saying it's possible. Then why? She turned to Moira. Why would they want me to think I was a monster? Because monsters run, the old woman said simply. They hide. They never learn to use their power, and weak bloodlines die out naturally, with no one the wiser. Lyra felt sick. 6 years. 6 years of running and hiding and hating herself, and it might have all been a lie. There's more, Moira said. She turned the tome toward Lyra, revealing an illustration that made her blood run cold. It showed a figure wreathed in silver flame standing between two worlds. On one side, forests and mountains and life. On the other, darkness and void and nothing. The prophecy of the silver wake, Moira read aloud. When the bloodline wakes, the barrier weakens. When the barrier weakens, the void hungers. And when the void breaks through, everything ends, Darius finished quietly. Lyra stared at the illustration. You're saying I'm going to destroy the world. We're saying you could. Moira closed the tome. Or you could save it. The prophecy is unclear on which. That's not ominous at all. The void is real, Darius said. It's been contained for thousands of years by barriers we barely understand. But those barriers are failing. We've felt it, seen it. Things coming through that shouldn't exist. And you think I'm connected to that? Your power is the same type of magic that created the barriers in the first place. He moved to stand beside her. Silverwake flames can seal or tear, build or destroy. It all depends on who wields them. Lyra looked down at her hands. The silver light pulsed beneath her skin, responding to her emotions. So what now? She asked. You lock me up? Kill me before I can accidentally end the world? No, Darius said. We train you. She laughed. It sounded broken. Train me. Right. Because that worked so well before. You were a child with no guidance and no understanding of what you were. Darius's hand closed over her shoulder. Now you have both. If you're willing. And if I'm not, then I take you back to that cave and wish you luck. His gold eyes met hers. But we both know you won't do that. You stopped running, remember? You made a choice to stand and fight. This is just the next step. He was right. She hated that he was right. What kind of training? She asked. Moira smiled. It wasn't a comforting expression. The kind that hurts. Over the next 3 days, Lyra learned exactly what that meant. They started before dawn in a training yard carved into the mountainside. Darius was there every morning, along with Valeria and 2 other Thornguard warriors. No audience, no spectators, just them and the brutal work of learning to control something that wanted to burn. Again, Darius said. Lyra stood in the center of the yard, her hands extended. Silver fire flickered across her palms, small, controlled, but unpredictable. She was supposed to maintain it for 10 minutes. She'd barely managed 3. I can't. You can. His voice was merciless. You did it in the forest when you protected me. Do it now. That was different. Why? Because I was terrified, because you were dying. Then get terrified. Darius moved closer. Dig into whatever emotion makes it respond and use it. Lyra's jaw clenched. The flames flickered higher, then sputtered, then died. Pathetic, Valeria muttered. Something in Lyra snapped. She rounded on the commander. You want to see pathetic? Keep talking. Is that a threat, Rogue? It's a promise. Silver fire erupted from Lyra's hands in a wave of heat and light. It wasn't controlled, wasn't precise, but it was powerful enough that everyone in the yard took a step back, except Darius. He walked through the flames like they were nothing more than warm air. His hand closed around Lyra's wrist. Good, he said quietly. Now focus it. Make it listen. Lyra wanted to tell him to go to hell, but something in his tone, not mocking, not cruel, just matter of fact, made her try. She imagined the fire as something she could shape, mold, control. Instead of fighting it, The flames condensed around her hands, forming a perfect sphere of silver light. There, Darius said. Hold it. Lyra held it. 5 minutes. 7. 10. By the time she let it go, she was shaking with exhaustion. But she'd done it. Better, Darius said. It was the closest thing to praise he'd offered. That night, Moira took over. The old woman led Lyra deeper into the archives to a room lined with crystals that pulsed with inner light. Sit, Moira commanded. Lyra sat. Your power responds to emotion, the seer said. Fear, anger, desperation. These are crude triggers. We need to find something deeper, something you can access without destroying yourself. Like what? That's what we're about to find out. Moira placed her hands on Lyra's temples. The world went dark. Lyra found herself standing in a void. Not the terrifying nothingness from the prophecy. Something else. Quieter. Gentler. This is your mind. Moira's voice echoed around her. The place where your power lives. Find it. Lyra walked forward, or tried to. Direction had no meaning here. Where do I start? Follow the light. What light? There was only... Wait. In the distance, barely visible, a silver glow. Lyra moved toward it. The closer she got, the warmer she felt. Not the burning heat of her power out of control. Something softer. Like home. The memory hit her without warning. She was 7 years old, sitting by a campfire with her mother. Her real mother, before the pack. The woman's face was blurry, but her voice was clear. You're special, little star, her mother said. Never let anyone make you forget that. Even when I'm scared? Especially then. The memory faded, but the warmth remained. Lyra's eyes snapped open. She was back in the archive, but her hands were glowing, not with the wild, destructive flame, with steady, controlled light. Moira smiled. There it is. Your anchor. My anchor? The emotion that centers you. For you, it's not fear or anger, it's the memory of being loved, of being told you matter. The old woman released Lyra's temples. Remember that. When the fire threatens to consume you, remember that feeling. Lyra stared at her hands. The light pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Thank you, she whispered. Don't thank me yet, Moira said. The hard part comes next. By the end of the week, Lyra could summon and dismiss the silver fire at will. She could shape it, control it, even use it in combat, though the sparring sessions with Valeria left her bruised and gasping. But word of her progress spread through the court, and not everyone was pleased. On the 8th day, Lyra was summoned to the throne room. She'd never been inside before. The space was massive, with columns that stretched up into shadow. At the far end, Darius sat on a throne of black iron and bone. Flanking him were 24 people in formal robes, the council, Lyra assumed. They all stared at her with expressions ranging from curiosity to open hostility. Lyra Vance, Darius's voice echoed through the chamber. Step forward. She walked down the center of the room, acutely aware of every eye tracking her movement. When she reached the base of the throne, she stopped. The council has questions, Darius said. Of course they do, Lyra muttered. A man stepped forward, tall, silver-haired, with a face like carved stone. I am Lord Kieran, head of the council. We've been told you possess silver-wake flames. That's what they tell me, and that you've been training to control this power. Yes. To what end? Lyra blinked. I'm sorry? What is your purpose here, girl? Kieran's voice hardened. Why should we trust a rogue with destructive power? Why should we believe you won't turn on us the moment it's convenient? Lyra looked at Darius. His expression gave nothing away. I'm just trying to survive. Survival is not a purpose, another council member said. It's an excuse. Then what do you want from me? Lyra's hands began to glow. You want me to swear loyalty, prove myself? What? We want assurance, Kieran said coldly, that you are not the threat the prophecy warns about. The prophecy says I could save the world or destroy it. How am I supposed to prove which one I'll do? You can't. A woman in crimson robes stepped forward. That's the problem. We're being asked to trust our king's judgment about a girl who showed up under suspicious circumstances with power that could kill us all. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the council. Enough! Darius's voice cut through the noise like a blade. I've made my decision. The girl stays. My king. She stays, he repeated, under my protection, with my authority. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. Silence. Then Kieran bowed stiffly. As you command, Your Majesty. But his eyes promised this conversation wasn't over. The council was dismissed. Lyra stood alone in the throne room as they filed out, each one giving her looks that ranged from suspicion to outright hatred. When they were gone, Darius descended from his throne. That went well, Lyra said sarcastically. They're afraid of you. That's good. How is that good? Because fear means respect. He stopped in front of her. And respect means they'll think twice before moving against you. Moving against me? Lyra's stomach dropped. You think they'd actually... Half of them would kill you in your sleep if they thought they could get away with it. Darius's tone was matter of fact. The other half would hire someone else to do it. Welcome to court politics. This is insane. I should leave, probably. His hand caught her wrist as she turned. But you won't. Why not? Because you're starting to believe what Moira told you. That you're not a monster. That you can control this. His grip tightened slightly. And because deep down, you want to prove all of them wrong. Lyra hated that he was right. Again. What do you get out of this? She demanded. You keep protecting me, training me, defending me to your council. Why? Darius's expression shifted. Something flickered in those gold eyes, something that made Lyra's breath catch. The barriers are failing, he said quietly. Something is coming, something that will require every ounce of power we can muster to stop. And your flames, properly trained, might be the only thing that can seal the breach. So I'm a weapon. You're a person with abilities we need. He released her wrist. There's a difference. Is there? Before he could answer, an alarm rang through the palace, a deep, bone-rattling bell that made the floor vibrate. Darius's expression went hard. That's the Western Watch. What does it mean? It means something just crossed our border. He was already moving toward the door. Something that shouldn't exist. Lyra ran after him. They burst out of the palace into chaos. Guards rushing to the walls, weapons being distributed, Valeria shouting orders. Report! Darius bellowed. A scout dropped from the sky, still half-shifted. The forest, my king, 3 miles west. There's... He swallowed hard. You need to see it yourself. They flew. This time Lyra didn't hesitate, just climbed onto Darius's mount behind him and held on as they launched into the night sky. Other warriors flanked them, a small army heading toward whatever had triggered the alarm. The forest came into view, or what was left of it. A section of trees, maybe half a mile wide, had been reduced to nothing. Not burned, not cut down, just gone. As if something had reached down and erased them from existence, and in the center of that impossible void stood a figure. Dark, twisted, wrong. It was vaguely humanoid, but its proportions were all off. Arms too long, head tilted at an angle that should have broken its neck. And where its eyes should have been, there was only darkness. Not shadow, but actual void, like looking into nothing. What is that? Lyra breathed. A void spawn, Darius said grimly. The first one we've seen in 20 years. The creature turned toward them. Its mouth opened, revealing rows of teeth that spiraled inward forever. And then it screamed. The sound was agony made audible. Lyra clapped her hands over her ears, but it didn't help. The scream bypassed her ears entirely and carved straight into her mind. Around her, warriors fell from their mounts, clutching their heads. Darius held steady, but barely. His hands were white-knuckled on the reins. The creature started walking toward them. With each step, more of the forest vanished. Not destroyed, erased, like reality itself was being eaten away. We need to stop it, Valeria shouted over the screaming, before it reaches the court. Weapons won't work, Darius shouted back. It's not physical. It's a tear in reality itself. His eyes locked on Lyra. Your flames, he said. Can you seal it? I don't... Lyra's voice shook. I've never... Can you? The creature was getting closer, the void around it spreading. In minutes, it would reach them. In an hour, it would reach the court. Lyra looked at her hands. The silver light was already responding to her fear, flickering wildly. She thought about Moira's words, about anchors, about being loved. She thought about the choice she'd made in that forest, to stop running and start fighting. I can try, she said. Darius nodded once, then he dove. They plummeted toward the creature, wind screaming past them. At the last second, Darius pulled up, swinging low enough for Lyra to jump. She hit the ground hard, rolling to absorb the impact. When she came up, the void spawn was 20 feet away. Up close, it was worse. She could see through parts of it, see the nothing that made up its form. Reality bent around it, warping and twisting. It turned toward her. "Okay," Lyra whispered. "Okay, you can do this." She raised her hands. Silver fire erupted from her palms, brighter than it had ever been before. She aimed it at the creature, pouring everything she had into the flames. The void spawn recoiled. The fire wasn't just burning it, it was filling in the void. Wherever the flames touched, reality stabilized. The erased forest didn't come back, but the spreading nothing stopped. "More!" Darius shouted from above. "Don't stop!" Lyra gritted her teeth and pushed harder. The flames grew, expanding into a wall of silver light. Sweat poured down her face. Her arms shook. Every muscle screamed in protest, but she held it. The void spawn shrieked again, thrashing against the flames. For a moment, Lyra thought it would break through. Then she remembered. Not fear, not anger. Love. She thought about her mother's voice, about Darius protecting her in the cave, about Moira's patient teaching, about choosing to stand instead of run. The silver flames condensed, hardened, became something more than fire. They became a seal. The light wrapped around the void spawn like chains, dragging it down, pulling it back toward whatever hole in reality it had crawled through. The creature fought, but the flames held. With a final shriek that shattered trees 100 yards away, the void spawn vanished. The void collapsed in on itself. Reality snapped back into place. Lyra fell to her knees, gasping. The flames died. Her hands were blistered and bleeding, but she'd done it. She'd actually done it. Darius landed beside her. For a moment, he just stared at the spot where the creature had been. Then he looked at her. "I knew you could," he said quietly. Lyra wanted to say something witty, something brave. But all that came out was, "I think I'm going to pass out now." Good. When Lyra woke, she was back in her room at the court. Moira sat beside her bed, applying salve to her burned hands. "How long?" Lyra croaked. 2 days. The old woman didn't look up from her work. "You nearly killed yourself. The amount of power you channeled. Did it work? Did I seal it?" "Yes. The breach is closed." Moira finally met her eyes. "You saved hundreds of lives, child. Maybe thousands." Lyra let that sink in. 2 days ago, she'd been a rogue everyone wanted dead. Now she'd saved them. "What happens now?" she asked. Moira's expression grew troubled. "Now, things get complicated." "More complicated than fighting void monsters?" "Much." The old woman stood, gathering her supplies. "The council is demanding answers. They want to know how you were able to seal the breach when their own mages couldn't. Some are calling you a hero. Others think I caused it." "Yes. Of course they did." "And Darius?" "The king," Moira said carefully, "has been in meetings for the past 2 days, defending you, explaining the prophecy, trying to convince the council that you're an asset, not a threat." Lyra's hands clenched into fists despite the pain. "I'm not a weapon they can point at their enemies." "Aren't you?" Moira headed for the door. "Think carefully, child. You've just proven you have the power to seal breaches in reality itself. Do you truly believe they'll let you walk away from that?" She left before Lyra could respond. Lyra stared at the ceiling, her mind racing. Everything had changed. She wasn't just a rogue anymore. She wasn't just a girl with cursed flames. She was something the world needed, and that made her more trapped than she'd ever been. A knock on the door. "Come in," Lyra called, expecting a servant. Darius entered instead. He looked exhausted. His hair was disheveled, his eyes shadowed. He'd probably slept even less than she had. "You're awake," he said. "Apparently." Lyra sat up, wincing. "Moira says the council is having a field day." "They always do." He pulled up a chair and sat. "How do you feel?" "Like I fought a void monster and lost." "You won." "Doesn't feel like it." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Darius leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "They want to bind you," he said quietly. Lyra's blood ran cold. "What?" "Not physically. magically. A binding oath that would tie you to the court, make it impossible for you to leave or act against us. And you said no. I said I'd discuss it with you first. Lyra stared at him. You're actually considering it. I'm considering, Darius said carefully, what it would take to keep you safe. The council is one vote away from demanding your execution. A binding oath might be the compromise that saves your life. A compromise that makes me a slave. Better a slave than dead. Is it? Lyra stood, ignoring the pain in her hands. You know what? I'm done with all of this. The training, the politics, the prophecies. I'm leaving. Where will you go? Anywhere but here. To hide? Darius stood as well. To run again? I thought you were done running, Lyra. I'm done being used. Then don't be. His voice rose to match hers. Stand and fight. Prove them wrong. Show them you're not a threat. You're the solution. By letting them chain me. By choosing your own path. Darius moved closer. You have power now. Real power. Not just your flames, but political power. You saved this court. They owe you. Use that. How? Make them an offer they can't refuse. His gold eyes blazed. Tell them you'll seal breaches, protect the barriers. Hunt void spawn. Whatever they need. But on your terms. No binding oaths. No magical chains. Just a partnership between equals. Lyra laughed bitterly. They'll never agree to that. They will if I make them. Darius's hand closed over her shoulder. Trust me. Trust you? Lyra met his gaze. You said yourself, everyone here wants something from me. What do you want, Darius? The question hung between them. For a long moment he didn't answer, then, I want you to choose to stay, he said quietly. Not because you're trapped, not because you have nowhere else to go, but because you believe we can do something important together. His hand slid from her shoulder to her cheek. The gesture was so gentle, so unexpected, that Lyra froze. I need you, he said. This world needs you, but I won't force you. The choice has always been yours. Lyra's heart pounded. This close, she could see the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight he carried, the loneliness of a king who trusted no one. She should pull away, should run, should... His thumb brushed across her cheekbone, and Lyra realized with stunning clarity that somewhere between the cave and the court, between the training and the fighting, she'd stopped seeing Darius as a king. She'd started seeing him as something more dangerous. She'd started seeing him as someone she might actually trust. The door burst open. Valeria stood in the doorway, her face pale. My king, we have a problem. Darius dropped his hand and stepped back. What is it? Your brother just arrived at the gates with an army. Darius's expression went from concern to dangerous in the space of a heartbeat. How many? 200. Maybe more. Valeria's hand was already on her sword. He's demanding entrance. Says he has urgent business with the throne. Marcus has urgent business with a blade through his throat. Darius was already moving toward the door. Tell the guard to hold position. Nobody opens those gates without my direct order. He's your brother, Valeria said carefully. The council will expect... I don't care what the council expects. Darius stopped at the doorway, his jaw tight. Marcus forfeited his right to family courtesy when he tried to overthrow me 3 years ago. If he's here with an army, it's not for a friendly visit. Lyra followed them into the corridor, her burned hands forgotten. Wait, you have a brother who tried to kill you? Half-brother, Darius corrected without looking back. Different mothers, same ambition. They reached the palace ramparts in minutes. Below, spread across the approach to Thornwood Court, was an army that made Lyra's stomach drop. Not just warriors, siege equipment, catapults, battering rams. This wasn't a delegation, it was an invasion force. And at the front, mounted on a massive black warhorse, sat a man who looked like Darius's twisted reflection. Same build, same sharp features. But where Darius's eyes were gold, this man's were pale green, cold as winter ice. Marcus Thorne raised his hand in greeting. Even from this distance, Lyra could see the mocking smile on his face. Brother! His voice carried across the courtyard, amplified somehow. Magic, probably. Are you going to leave me standing out here like a commoner? That's hardly hospitable. Darius leaned over the rampart. State your business, Marcus. My business? Marcus laughed. I heard the most interesting rumor. Something about a rogue girl with silver wake flames. A girl who can seal void spawn breaches. A girl you've been hiding in your court like a dirty secret. Lyra's hands began to heat. Around her, the thorn guard shifted nervously. The girl is under my protection, Darius said evenly. That's all you need to know. Is it? Marcus dismounted, walking closer to the walls with the casual confidence of someone who knew he was untouchable. See, I think the council might disagree. I think they might want a say in what happens to someone with that much power. The council answers to me. For now, Marcus stopped just out of arrow range. But how long do you think that'll last? You're harboring a dangerous bloodline, training her in secret, using her as your personal weapon. Some might call that tyrannical. The word hung in the air like poison. Darius's expression didn't change, but Lyra saw his hands tighten on the stone. You've made your point. Now leave before I have my archers turn you into a pincushion. Oh, I don't think you'll do that. Marcus looked up at the ramparts, his gaze sweeping across the assembled guards until it landed on Lyra. His smile widened. Not when I've brought you a gift. He snapped his fingers. Two of his soldiers dragged someone forward, a man, bound and gagged, beaten so badly his face was barely recognizable. But Lyra recognized the scars. The graying hair, Garen, the old wolf from her pack. The one who'd hunted her in the forest but never quite looked comfortable doing it. Found him skulking around the southern border, Marcus called up. Apparently he's been tracking the girl. Had some very interesting things to say about her past, about the massacre, about what really happened that night. Lyra's blood turned to ice. No! Darius's hand shot out, gripping her arm hard enough to bruise. Don't react, he hissed. That's what he wants. But Lyra couldn't look away from Garen. The old wolf's eyes met hers, not with hatred, but with something that looked almost like apology. Marcus circled his prisoner like a shark. He says the girl didn't cause the massacre. Says someone else triggered it. Someone who knew exactly what she was and wanted her destroyed. He paused for effect. Someone from inside this very court. The ramparts erupted in whispers. Darius's grip on Lyra's arm tightened. He's lying. Is he? Marcus pulled the gag from Garen's mouth. Tell them, old wolf. Tell them what you told me. Garen spat blood. When he spoke, his voice was rough but clear. The night of the massacre, there was a stranger at the celebration. None of us recognized him. He gave the girl something to drink, said it was ceremonial wine. He coughed. She started glowing. The flames came, and when it was over, he was gone. Convenient, Valeria muttered. But Moira had appeared beside them, her blind eyes wide with something that looked like fear. That's a triggering draft, she breathed. Rare, expensive, designed to force dormant bloodlines to manifest violently. Who was the stranger? Darius demanded. Garen's gaze slid to someone on the ramparts. He wore the crest of the Thorn Guard. Every eye turned to Valeria. That's absurd, she snarled. I would never— Not you, Garen interrupted. A man, dark hair, scar across his left eye. He described features that Lyra didn't recognize, but Moira did. Corvin, the old woman whispered. He died 2 years ago, or so we were told. He didn't die, Marcus said cheerfully. He went into hiding after his little project failed. And before you ask, yes, he was working for someone in this court. Someone who wanted the Silverwake bloodline exposed and destroyed before it could awaken fully. The implications hit Lyra like a physical blow. Someone at Thornwood Court had orchestrated the massacre, had made her think she was a monster, had spent 6 years hunting her while she ran. Who? Her voice came out raw. Who gave the order? Marcus's smile was pure poison. That's the question, isn't it? Who benefits from keeping dangerous bloodlines weak? Who's been in power long enough to orchestrate something like this? His gaze locked on Darius. Who would be threatened by someone who could challenge his control? You're reaching, Darius said coldly. Am I? Marcus gestured to his army. I have 200 witnesses who will testify that you've been hiding a weapon, that you triggered her bloodline yourself to create a tool you could control, that everything, the rescue, the training, the protection, was just manipulation. That's a lie, the shout came from Lyra. She stepped forward, silver flames already flickering across her hands. Darius saved my life. He's the only one who... Has he, though? Marcus tilted his head. Saved you? Or has he just convinced you that you need him? Think about it, girl. You show up wounded and desperate. He takes you in, tells you you're special, trains you, makes you dependent on him. Classic manipulation. Shut your mouth, Lyra snarled, but doubt had already taken root, because wasn't that exactly what had happened? She'd been running for years, and then Darius appeared, conveniently wounded, conveniently needing rescue. What if... Lyra. Darius's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. Look at me. She did. Those gold eyes held hers steady and unwavering. Don't listen to him, Darius said quietly. He's trying to divide us. That's what he does. Is it working? Marcus called up. I can't quite tell from down here. Lord Kieran appeared on the ramparts, his silver hair wild. This is madness. We need a formal inquiry. The council must convene. The council can wait, Darius snapped. Marcus, you have 10 seconds to remove your army from my lands before I consider this an act of war. 10 seconds, Marcus laughed. Brother, you're not thinking clearly. I'm offering you a way out. Give me the girl. Let me take her to neutral territory where she can be properly examined. If she's innocent, she goes free. If not, well, we deal with the threat before it destroys us all. She's not a threat. Then you have nothing to fear from an inquiry. Darius's jaw worked. Lyra could see the calculations running behind his eyes. If he refused, Marcus would claim he had something to hide. If he agreed, Lyra would be at the mercy of people who already wanted her dead. I'll go, Lyra said. No. Darius didn't look at her. You won't. If it proves I'm innocent, it won't. Moira's voice was grave. The moment you leave these walls, you'll disappear. Convenient accident, tragic loss. And Marcus will claim Darius was trying to hide evidence. Marcus tutted from below. Such paranoia. I'm hurt. You're a snake, Valeria said. Snakes have their uses. Marcus checked his fingernails casually. Speaking of which, I should mention that I'm not here alone. Some of your council members agree with me. They think the girl is too dangerous to be controlled by one man. They think she should be... Here they come now. The doors to the courtyard opened. Lord Kieran descended with a dozen other council members, all wearing expressions of grim determination. They approached Marcus's position, stopping just inside the gates. My king, Kieran called up. We formally request that the girl be surrendered to neutral custody pending a full investigation. Request denied, Darius said flatly. It wasn't really a request. Kieran's voice hardened. The council has voted, 12-9. We're invoking the right of common safety. Lyra looked at Moira. What's that? Ancient law, the old woman said quietly. If the council believes someone poses an immediate threat to the court, they can override the king's authority. Temporarily. Temporarily, Marcus echoed with a grin. Such a nice word. Darius's hands clenched into fists. For a moment, Lyra thought he might leap from the rampart and tear Marcus apart with his bare hands. But he held his ground. You realize, he said coldly, that this is treason. It's protection, Kieran corrected. The girl has already proven she can summon destructive force. We have testimony that she may have been planted here deliberately. We cannot afford to... Enough! Darius's voice cracked like a whip. Valeria, arrest them. Valeria hesitated. My king, the council law. I said arrest them. But the Thorn Guard didn't move. They looked at each other. At the council. At the army outside the gates. One by one, they lowered their weapons. Lyra's stomach dropped. They were choosing the council over their king. No, she breathed. No, this isn't... Lyra. Darius grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Listen to me. When I give the signal, you run. There's a passage behind the throne room that leads to the eastern cliffs. Take it. Don't stop. Don't look back. I'm not leaving you to... You don't have a choice. His grip tightened. They want you, not me. If you stay, this ends in bloodshed. It's going to end in bloodshed anyway. She was right. Even as they spoke, Marcus's soldiers were filing into the courtyard. The council members looked smug. The Thorn Guard looked torn. And somewhere in the crowd, Lyra spotted faces she recognized from her training sessions. Warriors who'd watched her practice, who'd seen what she could do. They all looked afraid. "Maybe I should just go," Lyra said quietly. "End this before people die." "If you go with them, you're dead within the hour." Darius's eyes blazed. "I won't allow that." "You don't get to decide what happens to me." "Then what do you want?" His voice rose, frustration bleeding through. "To surrender? To run? To fight? Tell me, Lyra, because I can't protect you if you won't let me." "Maybe I don't want your protection." The words exploded out of her. "Maybe I'm tired of being someone's weapon, or someone's victim, or someone's—" She stopped, because she just realized what was happening. Marcus wasn't here for her, not really. He was here to break Darius, to prove the king was weak, to turn the court against him. Lyra was just the excuse, and she'd played right into it. "This whole thing is a setup," she said slowly. "Marcus doesn't care about me. He wants your throne." "Of course he does," Darius said. "He's wanted it since we were children." "Then we're both pawns." Lyra looked down at the courtyard where Marcus stood waiting, his smile growing wider. "He's going to use me to destroy you. And if I run or surrender, it proves you can't protect your own people. Either way, you lose. I don't care about the throne. I care about keeping you alive." The words hit Lyra harder than any blow. She stared at Darius, searching his face for deception, for manipulation, for anything that would prove Marcus right. But all she saw was fear. Real, raw fear. Not for himself. For her. "Tick-tock," Marcus called up. "My patience isn't infinite." Lyra's hands ignited. Not with fear this time. With rage. 6 years of running, 6 years of believing she was a monster, and it had all been a lie. A carefully orchestrated manipulation to destroy her bloodline before it could become a threat. Well, they'd failed. She'd survived. She'd learned. She'd grown strong enough to seal a void spawn breach, and she was done being anyone's pawn. "I have an idea," she said. "Lyra, trust me." She looked at Darius. "For once, just trust that I know what I'm doing." Before he could stop her, she vaulted over the rampart. The drop was 30 feet. She hit the courtyard hard, her knees buckling, but the silver flames cushioned her landing enough that nothing broke. She straightened, flames still dancing across her hands, and walked toward Marcus. Behind her, she heard Darius shouting, heard boots thundering downstairs. But she didn't stop. Marcus's smile faltered as she approached. "Well, brave or stupid?" "Probably both." Lyra stopped 10 feet away. "You want me? Fine, I'll come with you. But on one condition. You're not in a position to make demands." "I'm in exactly the position to make demands." She held up her burning hands. "You need me alive and cooperative. If I lose control right now, I could level this entire courtyard. So here's the deal. I go with you, you leave Darius alone, and your inquiry is conducted in full public view. No secret trials, no convenient accidents." Marcus studied her. "And if we refuse? Then I show you exactly what the Silverwake bloodline can do when it's angry." The flames flared higher, hot enough that people started backing away. Lyra could feel the power building in her chest, wild and eager. She was standing on a razor's edge, one push in either direction, and she'd lose control completely. But she held it, just barely. "Interesting," Marcus said. "You've got more spine than I expected. Fine. You have your deal." "Marcus, no!" Darius had reached the courtyard, Valeria and a handful of loyal guards behind him. "You can't trust him, Lyra. He'll—" "I know," Lyra interrupted. She looked back at Darius, and something in her chest twisted painfully. "But this is the only way to prove I'm not your weapon, that I make my own choices. This is a mistake." "Probably." She tried to smile. It felt like breaking. "But it's my mistake to make." She turned back to Marcus. "Where's the inquiry being held?" "Ironhold. Neutral territory. 3 days from now." Marcus gestured to his men. "You'll ride with us. Under guard, of course. Can't have you running off." "Of course." As soldiers moved to flank her, Lyra caught sight of Garen. The old wolf was still bound, but his eyes met hers. He mouthed something that looked like, "I'm sorry." Lyra nodded. It wasn't his fault. None of this was. "One more thing," she said to Marcus. "Let him go." "The witness?" "I think not." He's told you everything he knows. Keeping him is just cruelty. Her flames brightened. Let him go, or the deal's off. Marcus considered, then shrugged. Fine, cut him loose. The soldiers obeyed. Garen stumbled forward, free but barely standing. He looked at Lyra with something like gratitude before limping toward the forest. Happy? Marcus asked. Thrilled. Good, then let's go. As they started to move toward the gates, Darius called out one last time. Lyra! She stopped, didn't turn around. 3 days, Darius said. His voice carried across the courtyard, raw with something Lyra couldn't name. I'll come for you in 3 days. I swear it. Don't, Lyra said quietly. This is something I have to do alone. Then she walked through the gates with Marcus's army, leaving Thornwood Court behind. The journey to Ironhold was brutal. They traveled fast, stopping only when the horses needed rest. Lyra rode in the center of the formation, surrounded by soldiers who watched her every movement. They'd given her plain clothes and taken her boots, harder to run without shoes. Marcus rode beside her, chattering pleasantly like they were on a social outing. You know, he said on the second day, I almost admire you. Most people would have begged for mercy. You negotiated. Lyra didn't respond. She'd barely spoken since they left. The strong, silent type. How mysterious. Marcus leaned closer. But you're wondering, aren't you, whether I'm actually going to honor our deal? I know you're not. Then why come? Because staying meant watching people die. At least this way, the blood's only on my hands. Marcus laughed. You actually believe that? How refreshing. He pulled his horse away. Get some rest, girl. You'll need your strength for tomorrow. That night, they made camp in a rocky valley. Lyra was given a tent, heavily guarded, and told to sleep. She didn't. Instead, she sat cross-legged on the bedroll, her hands folded in her lap, and tried to access the calm she'd found in Moira's training. It didn't work. Her mind kept circling back to Darius's face as she walked away, the fear in his eyes, the way he'd said her name like he was watching her die. She'd trusted him. Despite everything Marcus had said, despite all the logical reasons to doubt, she'd trusted him. And she still didn't know if that made her brave or an idiot. Footsteps outside the tent. Lyra tensed. A figure slipped through the flap, small, hooded. Not one of Marcus's soldiers. Who? The figure pulled back their hood. Moira. How did you? Lyra started. Hush, child. The old woman moved with surprising speed, checking the tent entrance before sitting across from Lyra. We don't have much time. Darius sent me. He shouldn't have. He couldn't not. Moira's blind eyes fixed on Lyra's face with unsettling accuracy. That boy is many things, cold, calculating, ruthless when necessary. But he's never cared about anyone the way he cares about you. Lyra's throat tightened. Don't. Don't what? Tell you the truth? Moira pulled out a small vial filled with silver liquid. He's been planning this since you left. A rescue. A raid. He's gathering every loyal warrior in the court. That's exactly what Marcus wants. If Darius attacks, it proves he's trying to hide something. I know. Moira pressed the vial into Lyra's hands. That's why you need this. What is it? Truth serum. Potent. Irrefutable. Drink this before the inquiry, answer their questions honestly, and no one can claim you're lying. The old woman's expression was grave. But Lyra, it will show everything, not just your innocence regarding the massacre. Every memory, every thought, every feeling. Lyra stared at the vial. You mean Darius will know everything, Moira confirmed. How you feel about him. What you've been thinking. All of it. That's... Lyra's hand shook. I can't. You can, and you must. Moira stood. Because Marcus is planning something worse than a trial. I saw it in his mind when I touched him. He's going to execute you during the inquiry. Make it look like you lost control. Use it as proof that Silverwake bloodlines are too dangerous to exist. The tent seemed to shrink around Lyra. When? Tomorrow, during your testimony. Moira moved to the entrance. The truth serum will protect you. As long as you're speaking under its influence, harming you will be seen as murder, not execution. Even Marcus can't spin that. Moira, use it, child, and trust that Darius will be there when you need him. She slipped out before Lyra could respond. Lyra sat alone in the darkness, the vial clutched in her hand. Truth serum. The idea terrified her almost as much as execution, because if she drank this, everyone would know. They'd know how she felt about Darius, how somewhere between the fear and the fighting, she'd started to… No, she couldn't think about that now. She tucked the vial into her sleeve and lay down, staring at the tent ceiling. Tomorrow would either prove her innocence or end her life. Either way, the running was over. Ironhold was a fortress built into the side of a mountain, all gray stone and iron gates. Neutral territory. It belonged to no pack, answered to no king. Just a place where disputes were settled and justice was supposedly served. Lyra was brought before a tribunal of 12 judges, all old and stern-faced. The hall was packed with witnesses, council members from various territories, warriors, civilians. Even some of Darius's Thorn Guard had made the journey, but no Darius. Marcus stood to present his case, spinning a tale of manipulation and danger that made Lyra sound like a monster waiting to explode. He showed evidence, testimonies from people who claimed to have seen her lose control, reports of the forest massacre, even Garen's statement about the triggering draft. But notice, Marcus said, pacing before the judges, who stands to benefit from controlling this weapon? Who took her in? Who trained her? Who's been using her to consolidate his own power? The king is not on trial here, one of the judges said. Isn't he? Marcus smiled. The girl is just a symptom. The real disease is unchecked royal authority, one man deciding who lives and dies based on whether they're useful to him. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. When it was Lyra's turn to testify, she stood on shaking legs. This was it, the moment of truth. She pulled out the vial. What is that? Marcus demanded. Truth serum? Lyra said clearly. I'm going to drink it and answer every question honestly. No hiding, no manipulation, just the truth. The judges exchanged glances. That's unprecedented. So is this trial? Lyra uncorked the vial. Unless you'd prefer I keep my secrets. No, the head judge said slowly. No, we would not. Proceed. Lyra drank. The effect was immediate. Her mind went crystal clear, sharp and focused. She could feel the magic working through her, compelling absolute honesty. Ask your questions, she said. They did. For 2 hours they interrogated her, about the massacre, about her power, about Darius. And Lyra answered everything, unable to lie or evade. Yes, she had caused the massacre, but only because someone had triggered her bloodline artificially. Yes, her power was dangerous, but she'd learned to control it. Yes, Darius had trained her, but not to use her, to help her survive. And your feelings toward the king? Marcus asked, moving in like a predator. Do you care about him? The truth serum compelled her to answer. Yes. How much? Enough that it scares me. The words came out raw, honest. Enough that I'd die to protect him. Enough that I don't know if I can trust my own judgment anymore, because maybe he did manipulate me, and maybe I'm just too desperate for connection to see it. The hall went silent. Marcus's smile widened. So you admit you're compromised, that your loyalty to Darius clouds your thinking. My loyalty to Darius makes me want to be better. Lyra's hands clenched. He's the first person in 6 years who looked at me and saw something other than a monster. Maybe that's manipulation. Or maybe it's just basic human decency. I don't know. But I know I'm standing here answering these questions instead of burning this place to the ground, and that's because of what he taught me. Or because he's conditioned you to shits. Enough! The head judge held up a hand. The girl is clearly under the influence of truth serum. Her testimony is compelling. I see no evidence of deception. Marcus's expression darkened. Then let's test that control she claims to have. Let's see what happens when she's pushed. He snapped his fingers. Soldiers emerged from the crowd, dragging someone forward. Lyra's heart stopped. Darius. They'd captured him. He was bound in silver chains, beaten and bleeding, but his gold eyes blazed with fury. No, Lyra breathed. Yes, Marcus said cheerfully. Found him trying to sneak into the fortress last night. Foolish, really, but touching that he tried. He drew a blade and pressed it to Darius's throat. Here's the test, Marcus said. I'm going to kill your king, and we're going to see if you lose control. If you do, proof that Silverwake bloodlines are too dangerous. If you don't, well, at least we'll have disposed of a tyrant. You can't… Lyra's hands ignited. The trial is over, Marcus said. The judges have heard enough. Now we see what you really are. He drew the blade across Darius's throat, not deep enough to kill, but enough to bleed. Lyra screamed. Silver fire erupted from her in a wave of pure rage and agony. It blasted outward, forcing everyone back, melting stone where it touched. The hall shook, cracks spiderwebbed across the walls. "There it is!" Marcus shouted over the roaring flames. "The monster! The threat!" But Lyra wasn't listening. She was on her knees, the flames consuming her, burning through her control. She could feel it happening, the power taking over, spiraling out of reach. Just like 6 years ago, just like the massacre. She was going to kill everyone here, unless... "Lyra!" Darius's voice rough and pained. "Lyra, look at me!" She forced her eyes open. Through the silver flames, she saw him, still bleeding, still bound, but smiling. "That's enough," he said quietly. "I'm okay. You don't have to burn the world for me." "But I've had worse." He actually laughed, the madman. "Remember your anchor. Remember what Moira taught you. Love. The memory of being loved." Lyra grabbed onto that feeling, that warmth. She thought about Darius protecting her in the cave, about Moira's patient teaching, about Marcus standing guard outside her door despite being terrified, about Darius's hand on her cheek, his quiet confession that he needed her. The flames began to recede, slowly, painfully, but they listened. When the fire finally died, Lyra collapsed. The hall was scorched but intact. No one was dead. She'd done it. She'd controlled it. The judges stared at her in shock. Marcus looked furious. And Darius was smiling at her like she'd just performed a miracle. "I believe," the head judge said slowly, "we have our answer. The girl is not a mindless weapon. She has control. She has restraint." His gaze shifted to Marcus. "And you, Prince Marcus, have violated the sanctity of this tribunal by orchestrating violence during testimony." Marcus's expression went cold. "That girl just proved she's dangerous. She proved she's powerful." The judge stood. "There's a difference. And more importantly, she proved that Prince Darius has been telling the truth. She's not his weapon. She's her own person." "This is ridiculous. This tribunal finds Lyra Vance innocent of all charges." The judge's voice rang through the hall. "Furthermore, we find Prince Marcus guilty of manipulating evidence and attempting murder during official proceedings." "Guards." "I don't think so." Marcus moved so fast that Lyra barely saw it. One moment he was standing across the hall. The next, he was behind her, his blade at her throat. "Here's what's going to happen," he said pleasantly. "Everyone is going to let me walk out of here, or I open her throat and we see if she can heal from that." Lyra's hands ignited on instinct. "I'll burn you alive." "Go ahead, but you'll bleed out before I die." His grip tightened. "And I don't think Darius wants to watch that. Do you, brother?" Darius strained against his chains, his face a mask of rage. "Let her go. Make me." For a moment, nobody moved. Then Lyra felt it, a vibration in the air, a shift in reality itself. The void was opening. "No." Moira's voice rang out from the crowd. "Marcus, what have you done?" He laughed. "Insurance. I have people in the lower levels opening a breach. If this trial didn't go my way, I'd at least make sure the girl had to choose, save herself or save everyone else." The floor began to crack. Black tendrils seeped through the stone, the same reality-eating darkness Lyra had seen in the forest. "You'll kill us all!" someone screamed. "Only if she doesn't seal it." Marcus pressed the blade harder. "What'll it be, monster? Save your own skin, or prove you're the hero they think you are?" Lyra's mind raced. If she tried to seal the breach, Marcus would kill her. If she didn't, the void would consume everyone. There was no winning, unless... She looked at Darius, at those gold eyes that had seen her at her worst and still chosen to stand beside her. "Trust me," she said. Then she grabbed Marcus's blade with her bare hand and yanked it away from her throat. Silver fire exploded between them, so bright and hot that Marcus screamed and stumbled back. Lyra whirled, her hand bleeding but functional, and threw everything she had at the breach. The flames hit the spreading void like a hammer. Reality screamed. The hall shook violently. Lyra could feel herself being torn apart, her powers straining past its limits. But she held it. She poured every ounce of strength into the seal, compressing the void back, forcing it closed. The silver fire formed chains, barriers, walls. It wrapped around the breach and squeezed. With a sound like thunder, the void collapsed. Reality snapped back into place. Lyra fell. Strong arms caught her before she hit the ground. Darius, his chains broken somehow, held her against his chest. "You did it," he said hoarsely. "You actually did it." "Marcus!" Lyra tried to look around. "Gone. Ran the moment you sealed the breach." "Coward," Lyra muttered. And then everything went black. When she woke, she was back at Thornwood Court, in her room, with Darius sitting beside her bed looking like he hadn't slept in days. "Hey," she croaked. His head snapped up. "You're awake." Unfortunately, everything hurt. "How long?" 4 days. He leaned forward. "Moira says you'll be fine. Eventually, you pushed too hard. Nearly killed yourself." "Worth it, though. Everyone's safe. Everyone except you." His hand found hers, careful of the bandages. "You can't keep doing this, throwing yourself into danger. One of these days, you won't wake up. Then I guess you'll have to keep saving me." "Lyra, I know." She squeezed his hand. "I know you're going to tell me to be more careful, and I'm going to promise to try, and we both know I'll do something stupid again, because that's who I am." Despite everything, he smiled. "You're impossible, and you're stuck with me." "Am I?" The question hung in the air. Lyra looked at their joined hands, at the man who'd defended her to his counsel, who'd tried to rescue her, who trusted her to save everyone even when it meant risking his own life. "The trial proved I'm not your weapon," she said quietly. "I'm free to leave, to go anywhere I want." "Yes. So why haven't I?" Darius's gold eyes met hers. "You tell me." Lyra thought about running, about 6 years of loneliness, about finally finding somewhere she might actually belong, about feelings she wasn't ready to name. "I'm staying," she said. "Not because I have to, because I want to." "Even though half the court still hates you?" "Especially because of that." She tried to sit up, wincing. "Someone has to teach them that Silverwake bloodlines aren't monsters. And if another breach opens, then I seal it. And if Marcus comes back, then we deal with him." She finally managed to prop herself up. Together. Darius stood, moving to the window. His back was to her, tension visible in every line of his body. "I lied to you," he said quietly. Lyra's stomach dropped. "About what?" "About why I took you in. About what I wanted from you." He turned to face her. "I told myself it was about the prophecy, about protecting the barriers, about using your power to save the world. And it was all true, but it wasn't the whole truth." He crossed back to her, dropping to one knee beside the bed so they were eye to eye. "The moment I saw you standing over me in that cave, refusing to run, choosing to fight, I knew you were going to change everything, and I was terrified." "Of me?" "Of how much I wanted you to stay." His hand cupped her face, thumb brushing her cheek like he had that night in her room. "Of how quickly you became more important than the throne, than the court, than anything." Lyra's breath caught. "Darius, I manipulated you," he continued, his voice raw. "Maybe not the way Marcus claimed, but I kept information from you, pushed you toward choices I wanted you to make, told myself it was for your own good when really—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Really, I just couldn't stand the thought of you leaving. So what are you saying?" "I'm saying you should leave." The words seemed to cost him. "While you still can. Before we—" His jaw clenched. "Just go, Lyra, before I ruin you the way I ruin everything I care about." For a long moment, Lyra just stared at him. At this powerful, ruthless king who was currently kneeling beside her bed, looking more vulnerable than she'd ever seen him. Then she started to laugh. "What's funny?" he asked, bewildered. "You," she managed. "You're an idiot." "I just confessed to manipulating you and you're calling me an idiot?" "Yes." She grabbed his collar and pulled him closer. "Because I knew, you moron. From the beginning, I knew you wanted something. I'm not stupid."
Then why did you stay? Because I wanted something too. She met his eyes. I wanted to believe that someone saw me as more than a curse. I wanted to stop running. I wanted... Her voice dropped to a whisper. I wanted you. The words hung between them, impossible to take back. Darius's expression shifted. The vulnerability bled away, replaced by something intense and hungry. Say that again, he demanded. I wanted... He kissed her. It wasn't gentle. It was desperate and fierce and tasted like blood and smoke and something Lyra couldn't name. His hand tangled in her hair. Her fingers dug into his shoulders. The silver flames ignited without her permission, wrapping around them both in warm light. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Darius rested his forehead against hers. This is a terrible idea, he said. The worst, Lyra agreed. You could still leave. I could. Will you? Lyra thought about it. Really thought about it. About freedom and safety and the life she could build far from politics and prophecies. Then she thought about Darius's smile, about Moira's teachings, about having a purpose beyond just surviving. Not a chance, she said. He kissed her again, softer this time. You're going to regret this. Probably. She smiled against his mouth. But it'll be my choice. They stayed like that for a long time, wrapped in silver light, and promises neither was certain they could keep. Neither of them noticed the shadow watching from the window, or the faint shimmer of magic as a message was sent across the mountains. Marcus Thorne, hiding in his fortress, received the message and smiled. Everything was going exactly according to plan. The shadow moved before anyone could react. One moment, Lyra was wrapped in Darius's arms, still tasting his kiss on her lips. The next, the window exploded inward in a shower of glass and dark magic. Darius threw himself over her as shards rained down. When they looked up, a figure stood in the wreckage, tall, hooded, radiating wrongness that made Lyra's skin crawl. Charming, the figure said in a voice like grinding stone. The king and his little weapon. How sweet. Darius was on his feet instantly, putting himself between Lyra and the intruder. Assassin, bold of Marcus to send you into my own court. Marcus? The figure laughed. You think that ambitious child is my master? How quaint! It pulled back its hood. Lyra's breath caught. The face underneath was half human, half something else. Skin that rippled like oil, eyes that were pure void, the same darkness she'd fought at Ironhold. Void touched, Moira's voice came from the doorway. The old woman stood there, her blind eyes wide with horror. Impossible. They were all destroyed centuries ago. Clearly not all. The creature smiled, revealing too many teeth. And we've been busy. While you played your little political games, we've been opening doors, breaking seals, waking things that should have stayed sleeping. Why? Lyra demanded. Her hands were already igniting, silver flames spreading up her arms. What do you want? Want? The void touch tilted its head at an angle that should have broken its neck. We want what we've always wanted. To reclaim this world, to drag it back into the nothing it came from, to end the pathetic charade of existence. It moved. Faster than anything human should move, it lunged at Lyra. Darius intercepted it mid-leap, his body already shifting into his wolf form. They crashed into the far wall with enough force to crack stone. Run! Darius snarled. But Lyra wasn't running anymore. She threw a wall of silver fire at the creature. It shrieked, recoiling from the flames. Good. Silverwake fire could hurt them. That was something. The void touched recovered quickly. It lashed out with tendrils of darkness that whipped through the air like living things. One caught Darius across the ribs, sending him flying. Another came at Lyra. She burned it before it could connect. Guards! Moira was shouting. Guards to the king's chambers! The void touched laughed. Your guards are busy. We brought friends. As if on cue, screams erupted from elsewhere in the palace. The clash of weapons, the howl of wolves, an attack, a full assault on Thornwood Court. This is a distraction, Lyra realized. You're keeping us pinned while we break the barriers, yes. The creature's smile widened. 3 major breaches opening simultaneously across the continent.
By dawn, this world will be drowning in void, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. Watch me. Lyra poured everything she had into the flames. They erupted from her in a concentrated beam, so hot that the stone floor melted beneath her feet. The void touched, tried to dodge, but she tracked it, following its movements. The beam caught it in the chest. The creature's scream was inhuman. It thrashed, its form beginning to dissolve where the fire touched. But instead of dying, it did something Lyra wasn't expecting. It split. The parts of it touched by flame detached, falling away like shed skin. What remained coalesced into a smaller, faster version of itself. "Clever girl," it hissed, "but you can't burn what you can't catch." It dove through the broken window and was gone. Lyra started after it, but Darius caught her arm. He was bleeding from a dozen cuts, his wolf form bleeding back into human. "Let it go. We have bigger problems." He was right. The sounds of battle were getting closer. Lyra could hear Valeria shouting orders, the clash of steel, the wet sounds of bodies hitting stone. They burst from the room into chaos. The corridor was a war zone. Thornguard warriors fought against things that shouldn't exist, creatures half flesh, half void, twisted mockeries of wolves and humans. Blood splattered the walls. Bodies, both friend and enemy, littered the floor. Valeria fought at the center of it all, her blade singing through the air. She'd gathered a defensive line, protecting the civilians who were fleeing toward the Great Hall. "About time," she shouted when she saw Darius. "We're being overrun. They came through the lower levels, just appeared out of nowhere." "The dungeons," Moira said. "There's an old seal down there. Ancient. If they broke it—" "They did." A younger guard stumbled toward them, his arm hanging at a wrong angle. "Sir, the entire lower level is gone, just erased, like it never existed." Darius's expression went hard. "Evacuate everyone to the Great Hall. Bar the doors. Valeria, organize a fighting retreat." "And you?" Valeria cut down another void spawn without looking. "I'm ending this." He looked at Lyra. "We need to seal the breach. Now." "I don't know if I can seal something that big," Lyra admitted. "The one at Ironhold nearly killed me." "Then we find another way." Darius started moving toward the stairs that led down. "Moira, what do we know about the seal? How was it created?" "Silverwake flames," Moira said, hurrying to keep up. "And blood sacrifice. The original seal required—" "Don't finish that sentence." Lyra's hands clenched. "No one's dying for this." "It may not be a choice, child." They reached the stairs, or where the stairs had been. Below was just nothing. A yawning emptiness that made Lyra's eyes hurt to look at. Reality ended at the top step and didn't start again. "How deep does it go?" Darius asked. Moira closed her eyes, her hands moving in complex patterns. "All the way to the foundation. And it's spreading. In an hour, maybe two, the entire palace will collapse into the void." "Then we have an hour." Lyra stepped closer to the edge, feeling the pull of the nothingness. It called to something in her blood, something that recognized it. "I can seal it, but I need to get closer." "Closer?" Darius grabbed her shoulder. "That's suicide." "It's the only way. The flames need an anchor point. I have to—" She stopped, realization hitting her. "I have to go inside it." "Absolutely not." "Darius, I said no." His grip tightened. "There has to be another way." "There isn't." Lyra pulled free, turning to face him. "You know there isn't. The Void Touch said 3 breaches. This is just one. If I don't learn how to seal them from the inside, we can't stop the others. You don't even know if you'll survive." "I know I have to try." They stared at each other. Around them, the battle raged. The palace shook as more of it fell into the void. People were dying. "I can't lose you," Darius said quietly. "You won't." Lyra reached up, touching his face. "But you have to let me go." Before he could respond, another explosion rocked the palace. Part of the ceiling collapsed, forcing them back from the edge. When the dust cleared, Valeria was there, blood streaming from a cut above her eye. "They've broken through the eastern defenses," she reported. "We're losing ground fast. Whatever you're planning—" "I'm going in," Lyra said. Valeria blinked. "Into the void? Are you insane?" "Probably." Lyra looked at Moira. "What do I need to know?" The old woman's expression was grave. "The void isn't just emptiness. It's hungry. It will try to unmake you, to erase everything you are. You'll need an anchor, something to hold on to remember who you are. Like what? A memory, a feeling, the strongest thing you have. Moira's blind eyes found Lyra's face. And you'll need to move fast. The longer you stay, the harder it will be to come back. Lyra nodded. She looked at Darius one more time. If I don't make it, don't. He pulled her close, kissing her hard. When he released her, his eyes were blazing. Don't you dare say goodbye. You're coming back. Yes, Your Majesty. She smiled. Then she turned and jumped into the void. The sensation was indescribable. Falling but not falling. Floating but not floating. Everything and nothing all at once. Lyra screamed, but no sound came out. The silver flames around her hands guttered, struggling against the absolute absence of reality. She could feel it trying to unmake her, to pull her apart piece by piece, starting with her memories. What was her name? She'd had a name, something that started with Lyra. Her name was Lyra Vance. She clung to that, using it as an anchor. Around her, the nothingness pressed in. She could see things in the darkness, shapes that might have been buildings, trees, people. The remnants of what the void had consumed. And deeper still, something massive stirred. Lyra forced herself to move, swimming through the nothing toward where the breach should be. She could feel it, a tear in reality, a wound that was bleeding the world into non-existence. Her hands found the edges. This close, she could see how it worked. The void wasn't just darkness. It was the absence of creation, the opposite of existence. And her flames were creation itself. The realization hit her like lightning. Silverwake fire didn't just burn, it made. It brought things into being. That's why it could seal void breaches. It filled the nothing with something. Lyra pressed her hands against the tear and poured her power into it. The silver flames fought against the void, pushing back the darkness. Lyra could feel reality trying to reassert itself, to close the wound. But it wasn't enough. The breach was too big, too old. It had been here for centuries, just waiting for someone to break the seal. She needed more power. Lyra thought about Moira's words. Blood sacrifice. The original seal required, "No," she said into the void. "There has to be another way." But what else did she have? Her memories flickered again. She saw her mother's face fading like mist, saw Darius's smile dissolving, saw herself as a child, running through forests that no longer existed. The void was taking her apart. She was running out of time. Lyra made a choice. If blood sacrifice was what it took, she'd give her own. Not her death, but her power. All of it. Every drop of silverwake flame in her veins poured into this seal. It would leave her human, powerless, vulnerable. But it would work. She let go. The silver fire erupted from her in a blinding wave, filling the breach, sealing the tear. Lyra felt it draining out of her. The heat, the strength, the ancient power that had defined her for so long. And with it went the pain, the fear of losing control, the weight of being something the world feared. It was almost peaceful. The breach sealed with a sound like thunder. Reality snapped back into place. Lyra felt herself being pulled, up, out, back toward existence. She landed hard on this palace floor, gasping. Darius was there instantly, pulling her into his arms. "You're alive, He stopped. "Lyra?" She knew what he was feeling, the absence where her power used to burn. She was cold now, human. "I'm okay," she managed. "The breach is sealed." At what cost? Moira knelt beside them, her hands hovering over Lyra's chest. "Child, your flames, they're gone." "I know." Lyra sat up slowly, testing her limbs. Everything worked. She was just normal. It was the only way. Valeria appeared at the stairs. "The void spawn are retreating. Whatever you did, it's working." Below them, where the emptiness had been, stone floors were visible again. Damaged, cracked, but real. The palace was rebuilding itself, reality filling in the gaps the void had left. "You did it," Darius said hoarsely. "You actually did it." "We did it." Lyra leaned against him, exhausted beyond measure. "But there are still 2 more breaches, and I can't—" Her voice broke. "I can't seal them. Not anymore." The weight of that realization settled over everyone. Then we find another way, Darius said firmly. Another silver wake, another method, something. There are no other silver wakes, Moira said quietly. The bloodline is extinct except for Lyra. And now I'm useless, Lyra laughed bitterly. Perfect. The world needs saving, and I just gave away the only thing that could do it. You saved this court, Valeria said. She was staring at Lyra with something that might have been respect. Hundreds of lives. That's not useless. But it's not enough. They sat in silence. Around them, guards were tending to the wounded, checking rooms, assessing damage. The battle was over, but at what cost? A runner appeared, breathing hard. My king, message from the Northern Territories. A void breach has opened near Frost Peak. The entire city is... He swallowed. Gone, sir. Just gone. Darius closed his eyes. How many? 15,000 people, sir. Maybe more. 15,000 lives. Erased because Lyra couldn't seal the breach fast enough. She stood, pulling away from Darius. I need air. Lyra, just give me a minute, please. She walked away before he could argue, making her way to the ramparts. The sun was rising, painting the mountains gold and red. Beautiful. Peaceful. While 15,000 people had just ceased to exist, Lyra's hands, her powerless, useless hands, clenched into fists. You're blaming yourself. She turned. Moira had followed her, moving with that uncanny ability to navigate despite her blindness. Shouldn't I? Lyra asked. I had the power to stop this, and I used it all on one breach. I was selfish. You were brave, Moira joined her at the wall. And you may have done more than you realize. What do you mean? The seal you created. It's different from the old ones. Stronger. More stable. Moira's expression was thoughtful. The ancient seals required blood sacrifice because they were trying to force the void back. But yours invited creation in. You didn't just seal the breach, you transformed it. Lyra looked at her hands. So? So that same transformation might be possible with other bloodlines. Not Silverwake, but... Moira paused. There are other ancient powers. Weaker, dormant, scattered. Individually, they couldn't seal a breach. But if we could wake them, combine them, we might be able to do what I did. Hope flickered in Lyra's chest. How many bloodlines are we talking about? Dozens, maybe hundreds, hidden in normal families, forgotten for generations. Moira turned toward her. But finding them, waking them, teaching them, that would take time we don't have. Then we make time. Lyra's mind was racing. The void touch said 3 breaches. 1 is sealed, 2 remain. If we can find even a handful of dormant bloodlines and wake them fast enough. It's possible, Moira admitted, but dangerous. Forced awakening is what created you, what caused the massacre. We'd be risking the same thing happening to others. Better to risk it than let the world end. They stood in silence, watching the sun rise. There's another problem, Moira said eventually. Marcus, he's still out there, and he knows about your power, or lack thereof. He'll use that. Let him try. Lyra's voice was cold. I don't need flames to be dangerous. Moira smiled. No, I don't suppose you do. They headed back inside to find the great hall filled with survivors. Wounded warriors, terrified civilians, council members who'd barely made it out alive. And at the center of it all, Darius, coordinating rescue efforts and damage assessment. He looked up when Lyra entered. Their eyes met across the crowd. She walked to him, ignoring the stares, the whispers. When she reached him, she spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. I have a plan. The hall went quiet. The void is breaking through, Lyra continued. We've sealed 1 breach, but 2 remain. We don't have enough power to stop them, not conventionally. So we're going to do something that's never been done before. Which is? Lord Kieran asked warily. We're going to wake the sleeping bloodlines. Every dormant power in every territory. We're going to teach them what I learned. And we're going to seal these breaches together. That's insane, someone said. It's suicide, someone else added. It's our only chance. Lyra looked around the room. I know most of you still don't trust me. Some of you probably wish I'd died in that void. But right now, we don't have the luxury of hate. Either we work together, or we all die separately. And how exactly do you propose we find these bloodlines? Kieran demanded. They could be anywhere. Anyone. We already have a list. Moira stepped forward, pulling a worn book from her robes. The archive of forgotten lines. I've been maintaining it for decades. Every family with even a hint of ancient power. It's incomplete, but it's a start. Darius took the book, flipping through pages. There are hundreds of names here. We won't need all of them, Lyra said. Just enough. 10, maybe 20 strong bloodlines, properly awakened and trained. Trained by who? Valeria asked. You just said you lost your power. I lost my flames, not my knowledge. Lyra met her gaze. I know what it feels like, how to control it, what to avoid. I can teach them. In how much time? Kieran pressed. You said we have 2 breaches. How long before they consume everything? Days, Moira said grimly. A week at most. The hall erupted in arguing. Impossible. Too risky. They should evacuate. They should surrender. They should... Enough! Darius's voice cut through the chaos. We're doing this. Lyra's right. It's our only option. Valeria, organize teams to visit every family on that list. Moira, prepare awakening protocols. Kieran, coordinate with the other territories. Tell them what's coming. And if they don't believe us, Kieran asked, then they die. Darius's expression was hard. But we're going to try anyway. Over the next 3 days, Thornwood Court became a military operation. Teams of warriors fanned out across the continent, tracking down families with dormant bloodlines. Some came willingly. Others had to be convinced. A few fought back, terrified of what awakening might mean. But slowly they came. Lyra watched them arrive. Ordinary people from ordinary lives, suddenly told they carried ancient power. A blacksmith from the southern coast. Twin sisters from a farming village. A scholar from the eastern territories. A street performer. A merchant. A healer. All of them scared, all of them desperate, all of them willing to try. Moira handled the awakenings in the deep archives using carefully measured drafts and ancient rituals. It wasn't perfect. One man's power erupted violently, destroying half a training yard before they could contain it. A woman went catatonic, her mind unable to handle what she'd become. But most survived, most adapted, and Lyra taught them. She worked with each one individually, showing them the meditation techniques Moira had taught her, the breathing patterns, the mental anchors, how to channel fear and anger into something controlled. It was brutal work, exhausting. And without her own power to demonstrate, she had to rely on words alone. But it worked. After 5 days, they had 13 bloodlines awakened. Not all of them were stable, not all of them were strong, but they were something. On the 6th day, news came from Frost Peak. The second breach was growing. It had already consumed 3 more villages. Soon it would reach the coast, and then it's over, the messenger said. The ocean feeds into the void, and the void feeds on the ocean. It'll spread across the entire continent within hours. How long do we have? Darius asked. 2 days, maybe less. They had to move. Now. Lyra gathered her 13 students in the training yard. They looked terrified, and they should be. She was asking them to do something she'd barely survived. Listen up, she said. Tomorrow, we march to Frost Peak. We're going to seal that breach before it reaches the coast. I won't lie to you. This is going to hurt. Some of you might not make it, but if we don't try, everyone dies. So I need to know. Are you with me? Silence. Then the blacksmith, a man named Tomas with hands like hammers, stepped forward. I'm in, he said. His voice shook, but his jaw was set. My family lives on the coast. I'm not letting them disappear into nothing. One by one, the others stepped forward. The twins. The scholar. All 13 of them. Thank you, Lyra said quietly. That night she couldn't sleep. She stood on the ramparts again, staring out at the darkness, trying not to think about everything that could go wrong. Darius found her there. You should rest, he said. So should you. He moved beside her, his shoulder brushing hers. I'm terrified, he admitted, of losing you, of watching you walk into that void and not come back. I'm terrified too. Lyra leaned against him. But I'm tired of running from fear, tired of letting it control me. When did you get so brave? I learned from someone stubborn, She looked up at him. Someone who refused to let me give up on myself. Darius kissed her, soft and gentle this time, like they had all the time in the world instead of hours. Come back to me, he whispered against her lips. Whatever happens tomorrow, come back. I will, Lyra promised. I'm done running, remember? The march to Frost Peak took 8 hours on fast horses. They arrived to find a landscape out of nightmares. The breach had consumed half the city. Buildings ended mid-structure, sliced clean by nothingness. Streets led to nowhere, and in the center, a wound in reality that pulsed like a living thing. Void spawn crawled at the edges, dozens of them, feeding on the destruction. Formation! Valeria shouted. The Thornguard warriors spread out, weapons ready. Lyra's 13 students dismounted, their faces pale. She could see their powers flickering. One had flames like hers, but blue instead of silver. Another had light that hardened into crystal. A third could manipulate gravity itself. All of them untested. All of them about to be thrown into hell. Remember your training, Lyra called. Find your anchor, hold on to it. Don't let the void take your memories. What if we can't seal it? One of the twins asked. Then we die trying. Lyra drew a blade. She'd started carrying one, now that she couldn't rely on flames. But we're not going to fail. Understand? They nodded. The attack came fast. Void spawn surged toward them in a wave of twisted flesh and darkness. The Thornguard met them head-on, blades flashing. Lyra fought beside them. Human now, but no less dangerous. She'd spent 6 years surviving alone. She knew how to kill. Her students spread out, approaching the breach from different angles. The plan was simple. Each of them would pour their power into it simultaneously, creating a seal strong enough to hold. In theory. In practice, chaos erupted. The blacksmith's power, earth manipulation, went wild, causing the ground to buck and heave. One of the twins panicked, her water-based abilities flooding the area. The scholar tried to pull them back, but his own power, mind manipulation, backfired, leaving him screaming. Focus, Lyra shouted. Remember your anchors. But they were too afraid, too overwhelmed. The breach pulsed, growing larger. They were losing. Lyra looked at the void, at the nothingness spreading toward the ocean. In hours, it would be too late. Everything would be gone. She thought about Darius's promise to come for her, about Moira's patient teaching, about every person who'd ever looked at her and seen a monster instead of a girl. She thought about choosing to stop running, and she made another choice. Lyra dropped her blade and walked toward the breach. What are you doing? Tomas shouted. Being their anchor, Lyra called back. I don't have power anymore, but I have knowledge. I've been in there. I know what it feels like. She reached the edge and jumped. The void tried to unmake her immediately, but this time she knew what to expect. She held on to herself, her name, her history, her purpose, and pushed back. And she called out to her students, not with words, with memory, with feeling. She showed them what she'd learned in that darkness, how to resist, how to create, how to fill nothing with something. One by one, they heard her. The blacksmith's earth manipulation stabilized, forming a foundation. The twins' water froze into crystalline structures. The scholar's mind touch became a network, linking everyone together. All 13 powers flowed into the breach, guided by Lyra's presence in the void. The seal began to form. It was different from Lyra's solo effort, messier, more chaotic. But it was working. Reality was pushing back, filling in the wound. The void spawn shrieked, their forms dissolving as their connection to the darkness was severed. Lyra felt herself being pulled in 2 directions, the void trying to keep her, reality trying to reclaim her. Then a hand grabbed hers. She looked up. Darius stood at the edge of the breach, half his body in the void, his hand extended. I told you, he said, I'd come for you. He pulled. Lyra came free with a sound like tearing fabric. They tumbled backward onto solid ground as the breach sealed completely, reality snapping shut like a closing door. For a moment, nobody moved. Then one of the twins started laughing. Hysterical, relieved laughter that spread through the group. They'd done it. The second breach was sealed. Valeria approached, her armor dented and bloodied. That was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. I'll take that as a compliment, Lyra gasped. It was meant as one. Valeria offered her hand, pulling Lyra to her feet. You saved thousands of lives today. Maybe millions. Lyra looked at her students, exhausted, traumatized, but alive. We saved them, not me. You led us, Tomas said. He looked different now, older, harder. We were falling apart, and you jumped into hell to show us the way. That's... His voice cracked. Thank you. The others echoed the sentiment. Lyra felt her throat tighten. There's still one more breach, she said, the third one. We need to rest, Darius interrupted firmly. The third breach is in the southern wastes. Remote, uninhabited. It can wait 12 hours while we recover. He was right. Everyone was running on fumes. Half of Lyra's students could barely stand. They made camp in what was left of Frost Peak. As night fell, Lyra sat by a fire, staring at her hands. Still human, still powerless, but for the first time that felt like enough. You're thinking too loud, Darius said, settling beside her. I'm thinking that I spent 6 years believing my power made me dangerous, made me a monster. Lyra flexed her fingers. But today, without any power at all, I did more good than I ever did with it. Because power isn't what makes you dangerous, Darius said, or valuable. It's what you choose to do that matters. When did you get so wise? I've always been wise. You just weren't paying attention. She laughed, leaning against him. What happens after? When all 3 breaches are sealed and the world doesn't need saving anymore? Then we figure out how to actually live. Darius's arm wrapped around her shoulders. No running, no fighting, just existing. Sounds boring. Sounds perfect. They sat like that for a long time, watching the fire burn down to embers. Tomorrow, they'd face the third breach. Tomorrow, they'd finish this. But tonight, Lyra Vance, the girl who'd spent 6 years running, finally felt like she'd found home. Dawn came too soon. Lyra woke to the sound of horses being saddled and warriors checking weapons. Around the makeshift camp, her 13 students were already up, their faces drawn but determined. They'd slept maybe 4 hours. It wasn't enough. Nothing would be enough for what they were about to face. Darius crouched beside her, offering a canteen of water. We have a problem. Just one? Lyra sat up, her body protesting every movement. That seems optimistic. Scouts came back an hour ago. The southern breach. It's not like the others. His expression was grim. It's bigger, and it's not alone. Lyra's stomach dropped. How many? 7 smaller breaches surrounding one massive one. They're arranged in a pattern. Moira thinks it's deliberate, some kind of ritual. To do what? To tear the barrier between worlds completely, not just breaches, total collapse. Darius helped her stand. If we don't seal all 8 simultaneously, the whole thing detonates. Everything within 1,000 miles gets swallowed. Lyra looked at her students, 13 people against 8 breaches. The math didn't work. We need more, she said. There isn't time to wake more bloodlines. We have what we have. Darius's hand found hers, squeezing tight. So we make it work. Moira appeared, leaning heavily on her staff. The old woman looked exhausted. The awakenings had taken their toll. There may be another way. A dangerous way. At this point, dangerous is all we've got, Lyra said. The original Silver Wake, your ancestor, she didn't work alone. Moira pulled out the ancient tome she'd shown Lyra weeks ago. She had a partner, someone who could amplify bloodline powers, channel them, direct them. Who? The first Alpha King. Moira's blind eyes found Darius. Your ancestor. The bond between Silver Wake and Alpha wasn't just political, it was magical. They could merge their powers, become something greater. Darius went very still. You're saying we could do the same thing? If the bond is strong enough, if the trust is absolute. Moira looked between them. But it's never been attempted in 1,000 years. We don't know if it still works. And if it doesn't, Lyra asked, then you both die, and we lose our best chance at stopping this. Lyra felt Darius's hand tighten around hers. She looked up at him, saw the fear and determination warring in those gold eyes. Your call, he said quietly. I'll follow your lead. The choice was hers. Risk everything on an ancient bond that might not even exist anymore,
or go in with what they had and pray it was enough. Neither option guaranteed success, but one of them might actually work. "How do we do it?" Lyra asked Moira. The old woman smiled. "The same way your ancestor did, with blood and fire and absolute trust." They prepared in the ruins of a temple at the edge of the wastes. The southern breach was visible from here, a massive tear in reality that pulsed like a diseased heart, surrounded by 7 smaller wounds. The air itself felt wrong, heavy with the weight of ending things. Lyra's students formed a perimeter, their powers flickering nervously. Valeria and the Thorn Guard stood ready to hold off any void spawn that emerged. And in the center of the temple, Moira drew symbols on the stone floor with crushed silver and ash. "This is the binding circle," she explained. "Both of you will enter. You'll need to share blood, just a few drops mixed together. Then Lyra will call her power." "I don't have power anymore," Lyra reminded her. "You gave it to the seal, but it's still yours. It's part of you." Moira's expression was serious. "Call it back. It will hurt, but it will answer." Lyra and Darius stepped into the circle. Up close, she could see the symbols were words in a language she didn't recognize. Ancient. Powerful. "Your blade," Moira said. Darius drew his knife and cut his palm without hesitation. Blood welled dark and red. He offered the blade to Lyra. She took it, her hand steady despite the fear singing through her veins. The cut stung. She pressed her palm to Darius's, their blood mixing. The moment their wounds touched, something ignited. Not pain. Not exactly. More like recognition. Like 2 halves of something that had been separated finally coming together. Lyra gasped as power flooded through her. Not her silver flames, but something older. Something that lived in her bones and blood. Darius felt it too. She could see it in his eyes, the way they widened in shock and understanding. "Now," Moira said, "call your fire." Lyra closed her eyes and reached inside herself, searching for the power she'd given away. It was there. Distant, faint, but present. Like an echo of what she'd been. She pulled. The pain was immediate and absolute. It felt like she was tearing herself apart from the inside, ripping open old wounds. She screamed, falling to her knees. Darius went down with her, his hand still locked with hers. "Lyra, don't let go," she gasped. "Whatever happens, don't let go." The silver flames burst from her palms, weak and flickering, but they were there. And with Darius's power flowing through the bond, they began to grow. Stronger, brighter, hotter. Lyra could feel his strength becoming hers, could feel her fire becoming his. They were merging, transforming into something neither had been alone. The circle beneath them blazed with light. "It's working!" Moira's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Hold it steady!" But something was wrong. The power was growing too fast, too strong. Lyra could feel it spiraling out of control, threatening to consume them both. She tried to pull back, but the bond held her locked in place. "We have to stop," she said. "Darius, we have to." "No." His voice was firm. "We see this through. It's going to kill us. Then we die together." His other hand came up to cup her face, forcing her to look at him. "I trust you, Lyra. I trust us. So stop being afraid and let it happen." She wanted to argue, wanted to run, but she'd promised she was done running. Lyra stopped fighting the power and let it flow. The world exploded into silver light. When Lyra opened her eyes, they were standing in a place that shouldn't exist. Not the void, not reality. Something in between. A vast expanse of silver mist and impossible colors. And in the distance, she could see them. 8 wounds in the fabric of this place, bleeding darkness. "Where are we?" she asked. "The space between." Darius stood beside her, his hand still locked with hers. "I can feel it. This is where the barriers actually are, the walls between worlds. How do we—" Movement. Something massive stirred in the darkness beyond the breaches. Something that made the void spawn look like insects by comparison. Lyra caught glimpses of it, scales and eyes and mouths that opened into nothing. "That's what's waiting on the other side," Darius said quietly. "That's what happens if we fail." The creature turned toward them. A dozen eyes, each one a window into oblivion, focused on Lyra. And it spoke. The voice wasn't sound. It was the absence of sound. It was entropy made audible.
Child of fire, you cannot seal what was meant to open.
Watch me, Lyra said. She raised her free hand and called the silver flames. They came easier here, in this in-between place. The fire wrapped around her arm like living metal. You gave your power away. You are weak, human, mortal. I gave it away to save people. That's not weakness. Lyra's grip on Darius's hand tightened. That's choice, and I'm choosing to stop you. Alone, you will fail.
Good thing she's not alone, Darius said. His own power surged, not fire, but raw strength, the power of an alpha, of a king who commanded respect through sheer force of will. It flowed into Lyra, amplifying her flames until they burned brighter than the sun. Together, they moved. The first breach was closest. Lyra poured their combined power into it, sealing it shut. The creature screamed, its form writhing. Stop! You do not understand what you do.
I understand perfectly, Lyra said. You want to end everything. I want to save it. Pretty straightforward.
They sealed the second breach, then the third. With each seal, the creature grew more desperate. It lashed out with tendrils of pure void, trying to tear them apart. Darius deflected them, his strength creating a shield around them both. 4 more, he said. Can you hold it? Lyra's entire body was shaking with the effort of channeling this much power.
I have to.
The fourth seal almost broke them. The breach was larger, older, more resistant. Lyra felt something tear inside her, felt blood trickling from her nose. Lyra, keep going! They sealed it. 3 left. The creature was fully visible now, thrashing against the barriers. Up close, Lyra could see what it truly was. Not a monster, but a force. Entropy itself given form. The end of all things made manifest. Why do you fight? All things end. All light fades. This is inevitable.
Maybe, Lyra panted, but not today.
5th breach. Sealed. 6th breach. Sealed. 2 more. Lyra couldn't feel her body anymore. The power was all that existed, silver fire and iron will and Darius's strength holding her together. The 7th breach resisted them. It was tied directly to the massive 8th breach, reinforcing it. They'd have to seal both simultaneously or neither would hold. We can't do both at once, Darius said. We have to. Lyra looked back at reality, at the thin barrier separating them from the world. She could see her students there, could see Moira and Valeria, and everyone waiting. If we don't, that thing breaks through and they all die. Then we split up. I'll take the 7th, you take the 8th. If we break the bond, we don't break it, we stretch it. Darius pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. I'll hold my end, you hold yours, and we seal them together. It was insane. It would probably kill them both. Okay, Lyra said. They separated. The moment their hands broke apart, Lyra felt the power waver. But the bond held, thin, strained, but present. She could still feel Darius on the other end, his strength feeding into her. She moved to the 8th breach. Up close it was massive, a wound in reality so deep that she could see into the true void beyond, an endless nothing that wanted to consume everything. The creature waited there, watching. You are one girl, powerless, mortal. What can you possibly do against infinity? I can choose not to give up. Lyra pressed her hands against the breach. I can choose to fight. I can choose to believe that one person can make a difference. She thought about 6 years of running, of believing she was a monster, of every moment of fear and pain and loneliness. She thought about Darius protecting her in that cave, about Moira's patient teaching, about her students learning to control their power because she showed them how. She thought about choosing to stop running, and she poured everything into the seal. The silver fire erupted from her in a column of pure creation. It filled the breach, pushing back the void, forcing reality to reassert itself. The creature screamed, its form beginning to dissolve. Across the space between, she felt Darius doing the same with the 7th breach, felt his power merging with hers, amplifying it, making it stronger. The seals began to form, but the effort was destroying them. Lyra could feel herself coming apart, her body burning up from the inside. She was mortal now, human. She couldn't channel this much power without consequences. Neither could Darius. Through the bond, she felt him faltering. Hold on, she whispered.
Just a little longer. The creature made one final attempt to break free. It slammed against the forming seals with enough force to shatter worlds. The seventh seal cracked. No! Lyra tried to reinforce it, but she was too far away, too weak. If that seal broke, everything they'd done would be for nothing. She felt Darius's power surge, felt him pour everything he had, his strength, his will, his very life force, into holding that seal. Darius, stop! You'll kill yourself! Worth it, his voice came through the bond. If it means you live— No! Lyra screamed. You don't get to martyr yourself. We do this together or not at all. She pulled power from the eighth seal, more than was safe, more than she could control, and threw it across the space between. It merged with Darius's power, creating a wave of silver fire that reinforced the cracking seal. Both seals held. For a moment, the creature stared at them. Then it laughed, a sound like the heat death of the universe. Clever, but you cannot maintain this forever. The moment you let go, I will return. Maybe, Lyra said, but you're not getting through today, and tomorrow will stop you again, and the day after that, for as long as it takes. Futile. That's humans for you. Too stupid to know when we're beaten. She sealed the eighth breach. The creature's form dissolved, pulled back into the true void beyond. Its scream echoed across dimensions, fading into silence. Then there was only silver light. Lyra felt the bond pulling her back to her body, back to reality, back to— She collapsed in Darius's arms, both of them crashing to the temple floor. The circle beneath them had cracked, its power spent. Moira rushed forward. Are you— We did it! Lyra gasped. Blood covered her face, her hands. Every inch of her hurt. All eight, sealed. Around them, her students were cheering. Valeria was shouting orders to secure the area. And in the distance, the southern breaches were closing, reality knitting itself back together. They'd won. Lyra looked at Darius. He was in even worse shape than her, his skin pale, his breathing shallow, but he was smiling. Not bad, he said hoarsely. For a powerless human. You're one to talk. You look half dead. Only half? He coughed, wincing. I must be getting better at this. Moira knelt beside them, her hands already glowing with healing magic. You absolute idiots. You nearly killed yourselves. But we didn't, Lyra pointed out. We're getting better at that too. The bond— Moira's expression was wonder and concern mixed together. It's still there. I can feel it. You didn't just borrow each other's power. You merged, permanently. Lyra felt it too. A thread of connection linking her to Darius, subtle but unbreakable. She could sense his emotions, his pain, his exhaustion, his love. Is that a problem? She asked. I don't know, Moira admitted. It's never happened before. You're something new, something the world has never seen. Story of my life, Lyra muttered. They were carried back to camp on stretchers. Lyra slept for 16 hours straight, waking only when sunlight hit her face. She was in a tent. Clean bandages covered her hands and arms. And sitting beside her, looking significantly better than he had any right to, was Darius. You're awake, he said. Disappointed? Relieved. He reached out, brushing hair from her face. We won, Lyra. All 3 breaches sealed. The void is contained. For now. For now, he agreed, but we'll deal with tomorrow when it comes. Lyra sat up slowly. Outside the tent, she could hear celebration, singing, laughter. The sound of people who'd survived the impossible. What happened while I was unconscious? She asked. Your students are being hailed as heroes. The territories are sending delegations to learn from them. And the council— Darius's expression turned wry. The council has officially recognized you as the guardian of the barriers, which comes with a title, lands, and political authority. I don't want any of that. I know. I told them. They insisted. He shrugged. You saved the world, Lyra. People are going to want to honor you for it. By making me nobility, that's a terrible reward. You could always refuse, Lyra considered, power, status, everything she'd never wanted, but also the ability to protect others like her, to teach them, to make sure no one else spent 6 years running and afraid. What do you think I should do? She asked. I think you should choose what makes you happy. Darius took her hand. You've spent your whole life being what others needed. Maybe it's time to figure out what you want.
What I want, Lyra said slowly, is to never have another formal ceremony. No crowns, no titles, no bowing. Done. And I want to keep training people, building a school for bloodlines, somewhere safe. I'll fund it personally. And I want, she looked at him, I want you, not the king, just the man who jumped into the void to save me. Darius's smile was soft and genuine. You already have him. He kissed her, gentle and careful of her injuries. The bond between them hummed with warmth, with promise, with the beginning of something neither of them fully understood yet. When they finally emerged from the tent, they were greeted by chaos. Her students swarmed her, all talking at once. Tomas had apparently taken down a void spawn single-handedly. The twins had synchronized their powers into something terrifying. The scholar had developed a way to track dormant bloodlines remotely. Valeria approached, looking uncomfortable. I owe you an apology, she said stiffly. I thought you were a threat. I was wrong. You were protecting your king, Lyra said. I respect that. Still, Valeria extended her hand. You're one of us now. Thorngard recognizes you as ally and equal. Lyra shook her hand, felt like something shifting, like acceptance she'd never thought she'd receive. Lord Kieran came next, along with several other council members. They looked sheepish. We may have been hasty, Kieran admitted, in our judgment of you. You think? Lyra couldn't quite keep the sarcasm out of her voice. We're offering formal apology and reparations and, he glanced at Darius, we're hoping you'll accept the position of guardian to lead the defense against future void incursions. On my terms, Lyra said. I choose my own team, I train them my way, and nobody tells me how to do my job. Kieran looked pained, but he nodded. Agreed. As the day wore on, more people came to pay respects. Common folk whose lives she'd saved, warriors who'd fought beside her. Even Garen appeared, limping but alive. I never got to thank you properly, the old wolf said, for saving me, for proving what really happened that night. You told the truth when it mattered, Lyra said. That's all the thanks I need. That evening, they held a funeral for those who'd been lost. Not many. They'd been lucky, all things considered, but each name was spoken, each life honored. As the pyres burned, Moira came to stand beside Lyra. You did well, child, the old woman said. We got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. Moira's blind eyes seemed to see straight through her. You chose courage over fear, community over isolation, love over hate. That's not luck. That's character. What happens now? Lyra asked. With the void contained, it will try again, Moira said bluntly. Maybe not for years, maybe not for decades, but it will try. And when it does, you'll need to be ready. We'll be ready, Lyra promised. A week later, they returned to Thornwood Court. The palace had been repaired, the damage from the attack erased. But something had changed. The people looked at Lyra differently now, not with fear, with respect, with hope. She walked through corridors that had once terrified her, her head held high. Her students followed. They'd refused to leave her side, forming a sort of unofficial guard. Darius had given her the eastern wing of the palace to establish her school. It was more space than she knew what to do with, but it was perfect. Training rooms, libraries, dormitories for students, a place where people like her could learn to control their power instead of fear it. On the first day, 12 new students arrived. People who'd heard what happened and wanted to learn. People with dormant bloodlines that were just beginning to wake. Lyra stood before them, seeing her own fear and hope reflected in their faces. I'm not going to lie to you, she said. This will be hard. Your power will scare you. It will hurt. There will be days you want to run and hide and pretend you're normal. They nodded. They understood. But you're not normal, Lyra continued. You're extraordinary, and that's not a curse. It's a gift. What you do with it is up to you. I'm just here to make sure you have the choice. She began teaching. The months that followed were the hardest and best of Lyra's life. She trained students during the day, worked with Moira on research at night, and spent every spare moment with Darius learning to navigate the bond between them. It wasn't easy. The bond meant feeling each other's emotions, sharing pain and joy in equal measure. It meant having someone who could see her at her absolute worst and chose to stay anyway. It meant being vulnerable in ways Lyra had never allowed herself. But it also meant never being alone again. 6 months after the void was sealed, Marcus resurfaced. He sent a message, not a threat, but a request. To meet, to talk. Neutral ground. Darius wanted to refuse. Lyra wanted to go. He's planning something, Darius argued. He always is. Probably, Lyra agreed, but I want to hear what he has to say. They met in a tavern on the border between territories. Marcus arrived alone, looking tired and older than Lyra remembered. No assassins? Darius asked dryly. No void spawn? I'm almost disappointed. I'm done with all that, Marcus said. He looked at Lyra. I was wrong. About you. About what you represented. You tried to have me executed. I did, because I believed you were a weapon my brother would use to consolidate power. Marcus spread his hands. I was trying to prevent a tyrant. Instead, I nearly caused the end of the world. So, I'm sorry, for what it's worth. Lyra studied him. The bond let her feel Darius's suspicion, his anger. But she could also see something in Marcus's face that looked like genuine regret. What do you want? She asked. To help. Marcus pulled out a map. I've been tracking void activity. There are weak points in the barriers, places where breaches might form in the future. I thought, if you're training guardians, you might want to know where to station them. It could be a trap, or it could be an olive branch. Lyra took the map. Thank you. Marcus nodded. He stood to leave, then paused. For what it's worth, I'm glad I was wrong about you. The world needs more people who choose courage over fear. Then he was gone. Darius looked at the map, then at Lyra. We're going to regret trusting him. Probably, Lyra said, but we'll deal with it when it happens. A year passed. Lyra's school grew to 50 students, then 100. People came from every territory carrying dormant bloodlines and desperate hope. She taught them all how to control their power, how to seal breaches, how to choose courage when everything screamed at them to run. The council officially recognized the school as the Order of the Silver Wake, guardians of the barriers, protectors against the void. They had authority, funding, and political backing. Lyra hated the politics, but loved the work. Darius balanced ruling his territories with helping her build something new. The bond between them deepened, becoming so natural that Lyra couldn't remember what it felt like to be separate. On the anniversary of sealing the breaches, they stood on the ramparts of Thornwood Court, watching the sunset paint the mountains gold. Do you ever miss it? Darius asked. Your old power? Lyra thought about it. The silver flames had been part of her for so long. But what she had now, the bond, the school, the community, felt more real. No, she said. I gave it up to save people. That was the right choice. Even though it made you mortal? Especially because of that. She leaned against him. I'm not special because of some ancient bloodline. I'm special because I chose to be. When did you get so wise? I learned from someone stubborn, she said, echoing his words from that first night. He laughed, pulling her closer. Below them, students trained in the courtyard. Lyra's first class, the 13 who'd helped seal the breaches, had become instructors themselves, passing on what they'd learned. The world was healing, not perfectly. There were still void cultists, still people who feared bloodlines, still breaches that appeared and had to be sealed, but they were handling it, together. That night, Darius took Lyra to the archives. Moira was waiting there with a small box. What's this? Lyra asked. A gift, Moira said, from the council. And from me. Lyra opened it. Inside was a pendant, silver metal shaped like a flame, with a small crystal at its center that pulsed with inner light. It's a reservoir, Moira explained. Your original power, the silver flames you gave to seal the first breach, they didn't disappear. They're part of reality now, woven into the barriers. This pendant will let you borrow a fraction of that power when you need it. I thought I was done with all that. You are. This isn't about fighting, it's about choice. Moira pressed the pendant into Lyra's hands. You gave up your power to save others. This lets you access it again, but only when you choose, on your terms. Not because someone triggered it or forced it or manipulated you, just if you need it. Lyra looked at Darius. Through the bond, she felt his support. his trust that she'd make the right decision. She put the pendant on. The moment it touched her skin, warmth bloomed in her chest. Not overwhelming, not controlling, just there, waiting. "Thank you," she said quietly. Moira smiled. "You earned it, child. 1,000 times over." 2 years after the void was sealed, Lyra stood in the great hall of Thornwood Court, facing a crowd of nobles, warriors, students, and common folk. Darius stood beside her, not as king and subject, as partners, equals. Lord Kieran stepped forward with a crown, simple silver, shaped like intertwining flames. "Lyra Vance," he said formally, "the council has voted. We offer you the title of High Guardian of the Realm, Protector of the Barriers, Teacher of the Bloodlines." Lyra looked at the crown, at the expectant faces, at everything this moment represented. Then she looked at Darius. He squeezed her hand. The choice was hers. It always had been. "I accept," she said, "on one condition." The hall went quiet. "This isn't just my title, it's ours." Lyra gestured to her students, to the order she'd built. "Every person who's learned to control their power, every guardian who stands ready to seal breaches, every teacher who passes on knowledge, we're all high guardians. We all protect this world." Kieran blinked. "That's highly irregular? So is everything else about me?" Lyra smiled. "Take it or leave it." The council huddled, whispered, argued. Finally, Kieran nodded. "The council accepts. The title of High Guardian will be shared among all members of the Order of the Silver Wake." Cheers erupted. Lyra didn't wear the crown. Instead, she placed it on a pedestal in the center of the great hall. "This belongs to all of us," she said. "A reminder that power isn't about being special. It's about choosing to help others, choosing courage, choosing to stand when everything tells you to run." That night, she and Darius walked through the gardens. It was late, the moon hanging full and bright overhead. "Any regrets?" he asked. Lyra thought about 6 years of running, about believing she was a monster, about every moment of fear and pain that had led her here. "None," she said, "not a single one." "Even about me?" She stopped, turning to face him. "Especially not about you." He kissed her, soft and sweet. Through the bond, Lyra felt his love, his pride, his certainty that they could face anything together. "So what now?" he asked. "You've saved the world, built a school, reformed the council. What's left?" Lyra laughed. "Live, just live, no running, no hiding, just existing." "Sounds boring. Sounds perfect." They walked back to the palace hand in hand, two people who'd found each other in the darkness and chosen to build something bright. Behind them, the pendant at Lyra's throat pulsed with gentle silver light, a reminder of power given and reclaimed, of choices made and honored. The void was still out there. It would always be out there, waiting for another chance to break through. But Lyra Vance wasn't running anymore. She was standing, fighting, living, and that made all the difference. Years later, when people asked about the girl with silver flames who saved the world, the story they told was simple. She was no one special. Just a rogue who'd been running for 6 years, who made one reckless choice to save a dying wolf, who chose courage when fear would have been easier, who built a community when isolation would have been safer. She was human, flawed, scared, and she changed everything. Because in the end, that's what heroes do. Not because they're perfect or powerful or chosen by destiny, but because they choose to be, every single day. Lyra stood at the window of her chambers, watching new students arrive at the order, young and scared and powerful, just like she'd been. Darius wrapped his arms around her from behind. "Another class? 50 new recruits." Lyra leaned back against him. "We're going to need more instructors." "We'll manage. We always do." In the distance, thunder rumbled. Storm clouds gathered on the horizon, natural ones this time, not the darkness of the void. Lyra felt the pendant pulse against her skin, felt the bond warm between her and Darius, felt the weight of responsibility and the joy of purpose mixing together. She'd spent 6 years running from who she was. Now she spent every day running toward who she could become. And that was a race worth winning. The girl who chose to stop running had finally found her way home. Not to a place, to a choice, to herself.